Hey there, guys. Welcome to Nightside Astrology. I'm Rafi, and today we're going to be going over some really interesting stuff with a term that's called eschatology, and we're going to tie it to the planets. In this term, eschatology, it has to deal with the study of the end times. So we're going to be using that term a lot. So I just want to make sure everyone knows what it means. But we've got three outer planets that are really in play for the major eschatologies of the three different major religions. And of course, I'm a sucker for Uranus and all the surprises it brings and the disruptive force that it is in the world, the revolutionary force that it is. This is why it is the ruling planet of Aquarius. I've got pretty strong Aquarius placements. But yeah, we're going to go over Uranus and we're going to be tying that to essentially Protestantism or Christianity, Christian Zionism, and how we've seen that throughout the ages reflect. And just some other events too, where we'll be going over not all of them, but we'll be going over the different times that Uranus has went into Gemini, which is the current transit we're under right now. And yeah, there were some really wild things that I found, and I can't even include all of the stuff that I did find with Uranus and Gemini, but I got a lot of it in there. We've got a few charts that we're going to go over very briefly, and I've got it combined with a PowerPoint that's got all of the information I've been compiling over the last week. But this, I have it down as a 3-part, but I think I can do this in 2 parts. So the first part's going to be just the Uranus and Gemini part tied to Christian eschatology, and the way in which people who are in positions of power, who I don't want to say subscribe, but are who are of this group, the Christian Protestant evangelical group, are trying to push their end time goal of the apocalypse, essentially. So let's get into it here. And of course, feel free to ask in chat if you have any questions, if you have anything to add. Let's get this pulled up here. All right. So of course, like I said, Uranus and Gemini. This is the word, the revolution, the rupture, and this is what we see as a trend that always comes about when Uranus is in Gemini. And as I said, stream 1 of 3. I'll probably make it into 2 streams. I think I can knock out Neptune and Aries and Pluto and Aquarius in the next one. I should be able to. We'll see here. But 2,500 year archaeology of a planet that broke the word and is breaking it again. If I can get this to go next. There we go. All right. And so 3 outer planets just changed signs together for the first time in centuries. 3 civilizational lineages, old as recorded history, are converging on the same moment in the same year. And it's also the same war, excuse me. The same predicted endpoint. And yeah, with this, the 3 civilizational lineages is just really fascinating because you see, and we'll get into this, but Uranus and all these outer planets act as essentially the mechanism for which major eschatologies take form, take over, all of these different things that we see. And yeah, we'll really get into it. There's a lot more in here. Yeah, so walking tour of every Uranus and Gemini transit since antiquity, and what they ruptured, what they revealed, what they wrote down. And then we'll talk about what the current transit's doing, right now, because we are seeing a lot of stuff going down that is very Uranian. And yeah, this is what I'm calling it, the Trinity of Convergence. And I do need to stress here. Let me, I'll switch back to, I really want to stress just how significant this is. This is not, you'll hear a lot of people talking about this being a once in a lifetime transit that we're under, and that's true. But I would argue this is a once in a civilization transit, or once in a civilizational transit that we're under right now, because typically we see the biggest things happen when we're dealing with one of these 3 transits we're dealing with. But what we have going on now is we have all three of these at the same time. And so, Uranus and Gemini, we always see stuff. Neptune and Aries, that's the Civil War. But we also had Uranus and Gemini during that time too, which is interesting. But the last time we had all three of these, I mean, the last time I checked, and don't quote me on this, but I think it was about 6,000 years ago, something like that. And so it's been a long time since we've seen all of these together, and there's just a major shift we have coming. And hopefully as we go through this in the different streams, we can kind of get on a lot of things that we can expect out of this, just based off of not only what we're seeing, but what's happened in the past, and combining all of these together. So that's really my goal here, and I hope you guys have a good time with me while we're doing this. All right, so today, of course, we're going over Uranus. And this, it deals with the word. It's communication, but not so much. This is more like mass communication. The way that I think of Uranus is the next octave up of Mercury, which rules communication, among other things. But communication is really the big one people will start out with when you're talking about Mercury and its rulership in astrology. But and really what Uranus rules, though, it's the higher level of that. So where Mercury rules communication, Uranus is going to rule telecommunication. Where Mercury rules your daily transit, daily mass transit, such as buses, in my opinion, are much more Uranus ruled, because that's very Aquarian. It deals with the collective. You're around a lot more people. And this kind of gets into the feel of what it is, but it also rules revolution in terms of not astrological revolution, but revolution in sense of like a revolution by the people, that kind of thing. And then technology, I would say higher technology, more advanced technology. There is a technological aspect of Mercury. This gets into the octaves between Mercury and Uranus here, but higher technology that connects people. I would say social media, internet, all that. That is very Uranian, Uranus, Aquarian too, if you will. Schisms too. This is where we see major schisms happen in history. The whole idea of the pamphlet, because this is a mass communication that goes out to people. And then, the printing press. This is when the printing press came out at first, and we saw this revolution in the way that we communicate. That was Uranus and Gemini. And so, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury, I did forget to say. And so this is why the communication aspect comes into this higher technology aspect. And, all the schisms, all of this. And even the meme, too. The meme is very Uranian, and people can make arguments about a lot of things. I really land on it being Uranian because memes are very viral. Those viral moments, that's Uranian. And just kind of giving a feel of the planet for everyone before we really dive in here. And then we can also say too, with just a little bit, just to kind of give a little bit of a teaser for the next stream, Pluto here. And I haven't put down the religions that each one rules, except I told you the first one here. So maybe by the end, there will be a little bit of teaser. There will be enough information out where you can guess which religions these next ones, or the mechanisms behind the eschatology of those religions, are ruled by Pluto and Neptune. But, Pluto, power, ending, transformation, the death of one age, the birth of a next. We're seeing that transit. We just went into Pluto in Aquarius. And so, Aquarius rules the collective. It rules all of these Uranian things I was talking about, but the collective is a big one, the people. And so these themes are coming up. Neptune, and then the eschaton, the holy war. So, these are kind of similar terms here. The dream that turns wars into spiritual events. So that is going to be really important. We're not covering it in this one, but you can definitely feel that running in the background, and that's contributing to everything that we see going on in the skies. Hello there, Sedona Angel. Great to see you. All right, so the astrological setup here and what Uranus and Gemini actually means. Well, I just kind of went over that, so Let's kind of get into here, though. We'll kind of see what I didn't already go over and knock through here. Another thing I didn't mention, though, I think we did say electricity, maybe not, but, the lightning bolts, the breaker of forms. We went over all of these rulerships here. Revolution, sudden disruption, technology, awakening is one I didn't mention. Awakening. And you see this mass awakening going on right now. And this really started last year when we saw Uranus go into Gemini before the retrograde, too. There was another wave of awakening that we saw. But electricity, the unexpected, the freedom that comes from fracturing what came before. And so this was discovered March 13th, 1781. A guy by the last name of Herschel, I think it was William Herschel, but I have his chart, and we'll pull that up. Not his natal chart, his birth chart, but the chart of him finding Uranus. So we'll take a look at that, or I should say finding Uranus, because personally, I kind of think that that Galileo found Uranus and kept that to himself. He was a very hermetic, occulted, esoteric man, but we'll still look at that chart. We'll look at both charts today. Found during Uranus Gemini transit, planet of revolution found mid-revolution by a man who turned his telescope to the sky. And then I guess these are some things I didn't necessarily go over with Gemini itself. I told you the ruling planet and its rulerships, but it is an air sign, mutable air. Mutable sign is a sign that is very changeable, very flexible, kind of bends with things, if you could say. And with the mutable sign, I also say between cardinal signs, mutable signs, and fixed signs. The cardinal sign is like the plane taking off. One of my favorite teachers taught me this. Is the plane taking off? The fixed sign is the plane in the air. They're good at sustaining things. Where it's just staying in the air right there, flying. Whereas where it's taking off, that's good at beginning things. So you see cardinal signs are great at beginning things. Fixed signs are good at maintaining things. And then mutable signs are good at ending things, because this is going to be the plane when it's landing. So just a kind of good thing to keep in your head for understanding the difference between cardinal, mutable, and fixed there. And then domain of the word. So we've got the Gemini, which is the word there. And then we have Uranus in Gemini, which really brings it up to the next level, gets it out to the people, that kind of stuff. So we're seeing that. We're going to see a lot more of that over the next 8 years, and this is just a great thing to get everyone ready for that. The word, language, scripture, communication, duality. This is another thing that gets overlooked, even by myself sometimes. That's why I'm happy I have the notes here. But yeah, duality. This is where we get the schisms that I mentioned, these major schisms that happen in society during any of these Uranus Gemini transits. It takes it to the next level. It splits things up. I've been talking in prior streams about the splitting of the worlds through Uranus and Gemini, and we're starting to see that too. The doubled image, information networks, trickster intelligence, Hermes, Mercury, Loki. These are the gods in the different cultures that you would associate to Gemini, or that are represented by that. And rhetoric too. And, there's the wit, orator, spin that comes with it, but we're definitely seeing the spin part a lot with rhetoric on the global scale. So that's where you can feel that influence. And the pamphlet, I brought that up, and the meme. And, the broadside, we won't get into all that, but the pamphlet and the meme, and these are going to be, we're going to see this is currently where we're at, where it's the meme, but back in some of the stuff we're going to look at, it's the pamphlet. And I thought that this was really cool. Okay, so with Mercury, a lot of people will think of Pluto as the planet or the god that brings, or Hades, I should say, when you're talking about the god per se, that is Pluto, as who ferries people between this world and the spirit world. But that's actually more of a Mercury thing. It's the communicator between the spirit world and the physical world. That especially when you bring in the Uranian mix in, because Uranus is ethereal. It's an ethereal planet. So it's between Saturn, which rules the physical, and Neptune, which rules the spiritual. It's right in between there. So it's in both realities. That's kind of why you see that with a lot of Aquarian people. They tend to be very spiritual. Hey, good to see you, Sydney. But they said, yeah, they Aquarian people, they or strong Aquarian placements tend to be very spiritual people, head in the clouds. In a different way than you see with Pisces people. Pisces is a little bit different, but yeah, carries the souls between worlds, the translator, the messenger between gods and humans. And this is why every Uranus and Gemini transit is also an eschatological event. Mercury is the planet that walks the line between the living and the dead, and Uranus in that domain breaks it open. So that even gets into some other stuff that we can start seeing over the next 8 years that's going to really challenge our idea of reality because of this play our reality is going to have on the spirit world. Especially with Neptune going into Aries, which I said rules the spiritual, it's now in a new cycle on the zodiac, in the first sign on the zodiac. So there's kind of a leveling up that happens within the spiritual. And this is something we'll see over the next 14 years when you're talking about the Neptunian side of it. And it's an 84-year cycle, 84 years to go around the full zodiac. So, so it stays in for about 7 years per. And then you can almost add that 8th year, when you're thinking of it because of the retrograding in and out of the next sign. So the themes still hang around, that kind of stuff. But this is the pattern that I'm seeing, and then we'll kind of get into the different eras that we're seeing this in. But the pattern is a technology of communication is invented or weaponized, and yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's just wow. The word is liberated from the gatekeepers. Mass communication triggers ideological rupture. Civil and religious schism follows. Founding documents are written. War on home soil in major nations. A new institution emerges that defines the next 84 years. And this is every single time we see that transit. Because I'm going back a couple, I don't think I missed any of them, going back to, I think, 4 or 5 Uranus in Gemini transits. And this is what we always see. So the floodgates are really opening. Yeah, and these are the transits that we're going through today. Now, I'm anchoring, it seems like a lot. I'm making sure that I structured this to only stay like within like 2 hours here. But we'll be going through all these, and the anchor is going to be the Protestant Reformation. I'm seeing a lot of stuff from the Protestant Reformation come back, but really we're seeing from all of these periods come back. World War II, of course, I'm seeing a lot of stuff from that. It's the most recent. We're going to see a lot. But yeah, we're going over the fall of Athens, the Protestant Reformation, Galileo's telescope, and then we have the King James Bible around this time coming out, Salem witch trials, the American Revolution, or American Revolutionary War, essentially. But we'll go more into the war side of it during Pluto Aquarius, because we also had Pluto in Aquarius, like we have now, during the Revolutionary War. And so, that's where I talked about Aquarius being the ruling planet of Uranus. That's where you get like the death and the war part of that. And then American Civil War, which I knew about Neptune and Aries in there. I didn't realize it had swung in there during the Civil War of America. So that was fascinating for me to see. And then World War II, the atomic bomb, founding of Israel. So, and of course now, and this is going to be until 2033. So we've got the fall of Athens first. And so around 415 BCE, I was playing around with some dates there. I think that the issue was, so any like weird dates you see that might not line up or conflict with one another in this PowerPoint is because of the Julian versus Gregorian calendar. So, but I did make sure to reconcile all that in the charts that we pull up. But this was like the first really rupture of the word that we saw, because this gets into our antiquity and when we had not our first civilizations, but really when we were using word on that level where it can create this rupture, or I should say the word. All right, so Athens, yeah, see, this is like kind of where, because 415, like that's kind of, like a lot of this stuff, it's there's wiggle room in it, but I did get exact dates, and that's kind of where I have that kind of confliction there, just so you know. But with this, I know this is where I have the charts for. So Athens, 404 BC, Uranus and Gemini, and I'll pull the chart right after this slide here for you guys because it's pretty wild. Cultural and intellectual capital of the ancient world, and then this is where we have the Peloponnesian War that begins, and this has actually been going on for a while, but this is really where it ends. I said it begins earlier. Sorry, this is where it ends. And Pericles, dead of plague, in 429 BCE, and this was in the middle of the war, so unifying leader is gone. I think we're going to see something that is reflecting that in the next, essentially in the next 8 years. We're going to see something that reflects that, where a leader in these wars that are rising up is going to all of a sudden be gone. I find it interesting that hantavirus thing is going around. I try not to give that kind of stuff too much energy after what happened with COVID, but that's kind of running in the background. Maybe that's something they try to pull on us in op. Plague had ravaged the city. Civic trust eroding. We see that right now. All-time low for trust in the government, for that civic trust. And by the 410s, a paranoid, brilliant, fracturing democracy. This is also exactly what we see. We're in the fracturing democracy. And at the 410s, that would have been in Uranus and Taurus, which has been the last 8 years we've been in. And we have seen the complete destruction of faith in the government in these last 8 years here. 7-8 years. And mind you, this isn't putting it all on the left or the right if we're talking in a political or geopolitical sense, because we have both sides in these last 8 years. So it's not even anything like that. Let me go ahead here and pull up the chart. Oh yeah, I got the Israel chart there. We'll definitely go to that later. Yeah, so fall of Athens. So this was right here where Athens actually fell. And I just find this to be so interesting, because if you look here, you've got Uranus conjunct Neptune right there, and we've got that Uranus-Neptune play going on in the chart now. They're not in the same sign, but yeah, Uranus conjunct Neptune in Gemini right there. It just moved in, and that's when you saw the complete fall of Athens right there. And there's other stuff we can get into with the chart. I mean, I find the Pluto and Pisces to be really interesting, but I am trying to move it along so we can focus on the Reformation period and some of those charts that go along with it. We had the mutilation of Hermes. I won't read all this stuff, but this is where there was a lot of mass paranoia going on, because they had these sacred phallic statues of Hermes, who is Mercury essentially. And that was like really one of their favorite gods, but people were going around and vandalizing, defacing these, and mass arrests, show trials, mass conspiracy, hysteria. This is something that we're going to see going forward, where people are starting to get rounded up. There's a lot of paranoia going on, and on a more of a personal level, and people around you, this is like where you're going to see people just have like complete mental crash outs and just go absolutely crazy. And so groundedness is very important during this time. I mean, I really like, personally, with what I look at, I think earth signs and fire signs are going to do very well in this energy. Air signs, they can do well if they don't go crazy, So it really just depends on the placements. It gets into the charts. And my website, if anyone ever wants a reading, my website is in the I don't know if it's in the description. I might have forgot to put it in the description for this video, but it is in my YouTube banner and description on the channel there. Oh yeah, wow. I'm just reading some of the other stuff here. Athens' most charismatic general was implicated. Yeah, I mean, the turns that we're going to see on people in positions of power. I know we wait around for mass arrests and stuff, but this this could go both ways. This could be mass arrest of citizens, of our fellow citizens, or mass arrest of elites here. Josie's Jazzy Junk, good to see you. Loss of a unifying leader in these times could be, MBS of Saudi. Interesting. Is that their leader, the crown prince? right there of Saudi. I don't know what MBS is. If you, I don't know if you could tell me that. Sicilian expedition. And then what I do know about the Sicilian expedition is they totally overextended themselves. And this is what we're seeing right now. We have overextended ourselves in all these wars. And it's just like, this is what's going to cause people to come in and take us over. You know, this is what's going to cause the internal conflict within our democracy. You know, it's a democratic republic, but it is more of a republic with, with democratic aspects, I would say. But you know what I mean when I say democracy. At the coup of the 400, oligarchs overthrow the democracy. What are we seeing now? Oligarchs have literally overthrown, through the Trump administration, our government. It's insane. And so we're seeing this come back up again. Oh, Mohammed bin Salman. Okay, okay. This unifying leader, these times could be. Yeah, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And they just had I don't know if Saudi got hit. I haven't been updated keeping up with the news today, except for when I just woke up and I saw that the United Arab Emirates got hit by Iran today, and that was I guess a counter attack for them hitting our ships. But then we came out and said our ships weren't hit, but they were hit, guys. Just like that wasn't a laundry fire that happened on the USS Abraham Lincoln. Like, we got hit today. So, and this stuff is going to come out. You know, one of the things I posted on X was I think that we see a lot of the truth about this come out to where it can't be denied anymore. During or after the next Mercury retrograde, because by that time we're going to just be moving out of this North Node Pisces. That's still the last of the Pisces energy of illusion, deception, that kind of stuff that we can be able to move out of, and then it's going to go to Aquarius, where the North Node is really more with the people again. So, and this is going to manifest in a lot of ways. I'm not saying we're just going to take our power back in the next year and a half with the North Node in Aquarius, but there is a different background energy, background flavor with that. All right, and then the sophists, language as battlefield, and so this gets into Protagoras, Gorgias, and Perdiccas. There we go. Okay, sorry guys, sorry about that. They weaponized rhetoric, taught that any position could be defended by argument, that truth was rhetorical. And so this is pure Gemini energy, and it's like language as power that we're seeing. And I would even add right now, we would see this on an amplified level, because we've got Pluto, which rules power in Aquarius, the ruler of Uranus, or rather Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius. So there's that play there between power, and we're going to see it on a much bigger level than we've seen it since essentially the Revolutionary War, when we had both of these placements. The trickster's tongue, 2.5 millennia later. Your social media feed runs on the same operating system. Oh, whoop, I skipped one there. Got some key figures here. We don't necessarily need to go over any of them. Socrates, though, you know, he had a trial. He was able to get his way out of the trial just because of his great argumentative logic. So these are just, as I said, these are these themes that'll keep coming back up in these present times. And then we've got the eschatological thread. So this is kind of where it gets interesting, and what I really wanted to, like the point of the entire stream, but I like to give this background so that we can look. So the Eleusinian mysteries running at full strength. The Eleusinian mysteries are, I mean, I just think of that as old, you could say Greek esotericism, occultism, and so it's what it says here, initiatory death rebirth rituals, the eschatological alternative to civic religion. So this is kind of where there was this pivot in the religious, in the eschatology stuff, and went into this more logic-based place here. So during the mutilation, men were also accused of profaning the mysteries. And also, you know, I think it's important to bring up how we talk about the what Josie's Jazzy Junk said here. Oh, it's always been a messy business trying to get the people back on top. Yeah, definitely. And that's the kind of thing where technically you can't really talk on YouTube about these things, about what that messy business is for the people to take their power back without it being considered inciting violence. And I find it very interesting that they made it illegal to incite violence against the government. But how do you think we got this nation? Inciting violence against the government. How do we get back to a place that we are ruled by the people for the people. I won't finish that sentence, but you know what I'm trying to say. Profaning the mysteries, though. So this is kind of where I think another prediction I have for these next few years is a mystery school revealing itself, because we had pretty much at the ass end of the last, or not the ass end, because, okay, here's the thing. Let me take a step back. So we'll also be looking at some charts tonight that have Uranus and Taurus too. So really, like the Uranus and Taurus period, the last one we had, is where a lot of mystery schools revealed themselves. And this is where you have the Theosophical work by Helena Blavatsky, excuse me. And that really ties into the Eastern teachings and a consolidation of those Eastern teachings into something digestible for the masses, essentially. And it deals with a lot of those Eastern mysteries. And then on the Western side, you have anthroposophy from Rudolf Steiner, and he synthesized the Western teachings into and pulled all the esotericism, the deeper things out of them. So this is these are things that are going on during all that. Plato's eschatology emerged from this rubble. And this is where we really get this birth of logic, the Platonic solids, and all of these things that we know as spiritual people. Because if you're watching this, you're a spiritual person, that are this great foundation for us and have been in how we have been, well, right here what it says, the framework for our souls, for how we move about in this world as spiritual people, and still engage with this world, with this dense material world. Let's see here. Yes, and then so this is really where it gets interesting. All of this funnels into Christianity through Augustine 800 years later. So the eschatology that we know as, like, I'm sure not everyone watching this is Christian, but most people I'm sure were raised Christian that are watching this. And if you're not, that I'm not even trying to say anything. But with that, there's just, even if you're not, there's a Christian mentality that doesn't get discussed enough. And this gets into the stuff with Augustine, the stuff with Constantine and the Council of Nicaea, and really the big differences between Eastern Orthodoxy Christianity and the Western evangelical, I guess you can say, is the new evolution of it, or even Lutheranism. This Protestantism, though, that we see now that permeates the West. And just there's a mode of thinking that comes with it if you're engaged in a society that is a quote-unquote Christian society, or at least was founded as such. So these are just the modern echoes that we have of this time period. With the Sicilian expedition, now we have, and I kind of went over this, we've got the Iraq, that wasn't really during now, but it's just coming back to visit us during this time. Ukraine, Iran, that kind of stuff, it's all consolidating, converging, I could say, there's that word, into this. But we just see the same thing, overextension, and everything is like coming home to roost, like, well, nothing is going well at home, and people can't be bothered to fix any of the issues at home. It's just so important that we're out and doing all this stuff. And this is because the people, and a lot of people overlook this, the people who are in control right now are religious fanatics. They can put on the suit and tie and like look the part and all that, but look at someone like Pete Hegseth, who is running the Department of War right now. He's a Knights Templar. He's an extreme Christian. He was out there reading a Bible verse, which is funny because it was from Pulp Fiction. It wasn't even a Bible verse, and this just shows you the comedy. But let's try to move through this. I won't get sidetracked. Hey there. Good to see you, Liz. And Sophist Rhetoric. Yeah, we kind of went through all this, the plague, yep, and then we see this right now, the plague coming up. Well, there's the whole thing I'm talking about now where they're talking about the hantavirus, but we just got over COVID. This was a whole Uranus and Taurus thing. So there's just play between both of them. We'll mainly be covering, most of these charts are Uranus and Gemini, but there are some where the seeds are planted. And that's why this hantavirus thing could very much be real, as much as I don't like to give it my energy. Because I always did have this opinion that COVID was a test run for something bigger that they may try to pull on us that will be lockdown related. Whether they actually try to use a pandemic to do it, I just feel like people would reject it. I don't see that actually working. But yeah, so that was the plague of Athens, and the reflection that we're seeing now, the sophist rhetoric. And this gets into social media discourse, especially on X, and everyone defending their positions, doing it with logic, having this back and forth, which is I think a beautiful thing about X and everything. I'm watching that. Of course, there's a lot of other stuff that comes with it, but I know, not the Hanta, no. Oh my goodness. And then Pericles dies. So loss of unifying leadership, and what comes next after the great man. And so this gets into this prediction with Trump, which like I've really extended out after these retrogrades, and it has to do with the placement of algol, like losing one's head. This is in late degrees of Taurus. I believe it's the late degrees of Taurus. Don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere in there. Algol, the star. But yeah, it has to deal with alcohol, losing one's head. When you drink too much, you lose one's head. You're drinking spirits, that kind of thing. So algol transits can also be, and this was an algol transit that Donald Trump had during that assassination attempt. He was under a major algol transit. So this is kind of where I'm like, oh, we could see something really interesting there. But yeah. And this could, but it's just like Josie's Jazzy Junk was saying. This could be a unifying leader that is Mohammed bin Salman. This could be, Benjamin Netanyahu. We already had those rumors that he had died, and like everyone like didn't know where he was. There were AI pictures of him, and then now he's back. We won't even start to open up this like cloning box, which they're starting to talk about again. And then charts to pull. So I did, it gives me all these charts to pull, guys, but we've got a lot to get through. I think we're like almost a third of the way through it. So we're going to kind of keep pushing, because now we're at the Protestant Reformation. This is kind of where the bulk of the information is I wanted to go over, the most charts that I wanted to go over. But the word goes off the leash, and this is the anchor for all of these different, I really would say, like the seeding was this last fall of Athens I talked about. And then we get this rise of Christianity that is a result of that really taking form, at least in some kind of way where we can recognize it in the same form that we see it today. So the Protestant Reformation, and this is, I guess I kind of said this, but why it's the anchor. Without it, none of what comes after exists. So we would have no vernacular Bible. And what the vernacular Bible means is a Bible that is in the word of the common man. So, like a lot of people, especially people who read the Bible, which I find to be interesting, who are like really into it, they like don't realize that the Bible was never really always accessible to everyone. But no, it was always in Latin, and only the priesthood knew how to read Latin, and they were essentially the gatekeepers. And that's why you see that around this Reformation period, which was Uranus and Gemini. Remember that thing we talked about earlier in the stream, where the floodgates open, like the gatekeepers can no longer keep that information away from the people. So that's really, this is just one of the times that you see it, is the Bible gets translated into German. And this is where Martin Luther comes about, the founder of Lutheranism, which is under the umbrella of Protestantism. No, we wouldn't have Puritans and the Puritan pilgrims that come in from, the founding of America. And I guess it wasn't America at the time when they first came, but, it eventually becomes America. And this, no United States as a Protestant project. No Christian Zionism, actually. So this is really where we get the first seeds of Christian Zionism. And I'll go over the person who truly brought Christian Zionism in another Uranus Gemini transit, which was closer to the Revolutionary War. No Israel-U.S. Theological Alliance, because it's the weird alliance. It's a very weird alliance when you have this religion, you can say, this theology that is wholly against the savior of one theology, but yet there's an alliance between them. And so, it might take us getting into the Pluto stream to really go over that, but the no 2025 Iran war framed in apocalyptic terms. And so this ties back to what I was kind of saying, is with the Christian eschatology and the whole idea of how they bring about the return of the Savior, of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, is through everything getting so bad, there being destruction everywhere. And so they are literally involving themselves in a self-fulfilling prophecy, trying to make things as bad as they can, as violent, as destructive as they can, in order to bring back the return of the Messiah. These people are insane. They're freaking nuts. They're nuts. So the seed is the Reformation. Every transit since waters the same plant. And yeah, so the world before Luther. So we got the Catholic Church, and it was a dominant institution. We went over that. Only people could read in Latin. We read the Bible in Latin, so you were going through the priesthood. They technically weren't called priests, but you know what I mean when I say priesthood. The Pope's authority was absolute, so he forbade anyone else to be able to like translate it. And then this is also the time of indulgences. People who had sinned, quote unquote, could pay money to get certificates that would give them less time in purgatory, in hell, whatever you want to say. And there's some amazing things I could connect with Dante's work and Dante's Inferno, but we won't get into that now, of course. The proceeds were funding St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, which is beautiful. That is something great that does come about. I mean, St. Peter's Basilica is just so gorgeous. And I mean, the beautiful hidden symbols that are plugged in and built into it are incredible and beautiful. What's the place that I want to go before, I die, I guess. All right. And then we went over these. I think we all kind of know what purgatory is: intermediate state of life or death where souls are purified before entering heaven. And this is something that if you weren't brought up Catholic, and I wasn't either, this is kind of a foreign term, at least in this sense. But because Protestants, any of us who are brought up Christian, any of the different branches of Christianity, like we didn't like talk about purgatory. We just talk about going to heaven. And then you've got sola scriptura and sola fide, and this really gets into what you would call Calvinism, is the term for it. And Calvinism has to do with there's a lot of things in Calvinism. Actually, let me just pull it up, because there's these three main things with Calvinism, and it's like I'll do Calvinism tulip, because tulip's an acronym representing the 5 points of Calvinism. So T for total depravity. Sin affects every part of humanity, rendering people spiritually dead and incapable of choosing to follow God on their own. U, unconditional election. God chooses certain individuals for salvation based solely on his purpose, not any foreseen merit or faith in them. L, limited atonement. Christ's death specifically paid for the sins of the elect, not everyone, ensuring their salvation. And so that's kind of like really what I'm getting towards, is they believe in predestination. And some of us have heard this term through like time travel movies and all that, but what it means is like God transcends time and space and has already chosen who's going to go to heaven. And I'm not saying I believe any of this stuff, guys, by the way. Like I identify as a Christian, but like I'm a very different type of Christian. Like I'm just kind of giving a background on all this stuff, so don't get it twisted. And then I, irresistible grace. Those whom God calls to salvation will be empowered by the Holy Spirit to respond. They cannot resist God's desire to save them. P, perseverance of the saints. Those truly saved by God will be kept by his power to persevere in faith until the end and cannot lose their salvation. And so that kind of just is a little bit where you can get into what sola scriptura and sola fide is. Okay, we went over this. The only thing you guys know what excommunication is from the church. You already know that. But what I will say, these are the two events we're going to go over. This is the Diet of Worms. Okay, it looks like Diet of Worms, but it's Diet of Worms and the Diet of, Spear. The Diet of Worms and the Diet of Spear. And so those are just, and these are like kind of assemblies that happen right here. It says it right here: a formal deliberative assembly of the Holy Roman Empire's princes and representatives. The 95 Theses, this gets into Martin Luther, who we've all heard about. Not Martin Luther King, by the way, I forgot to say earlier. Martin Luther, the founder of Lutheranism. But this is his 95 propositions that he like. I remember hearing about it in school, and like he hammered these onto like into his town square or something. I forget which town, but we've got the chart for it, so we'll pull it up. Um, and then Anabaptist. I didn't really see this becoming very relevant, but I still included it. Like it's essentially talking about baptism not being valid in the Christian way, as where you're an infant, but you have to do an adult baptism by personal confession of faith to Jesus Christ. And then the Reformation period, we're talking about the Reformation. This is this religious movement that fractures Western Christianity into the Protestant camp and the Catholic camp. And then you can even get into the Catholicism, like Eastern Catholicism versus Western Catholicism. That's not for this stream, but it's important to know. So the 95 Theses. I'll pull up the chart after this. And Wittenberg is where it was. So Luther posts the 95 Theses on the door of the castle church. I mean, talk about bold. This is very much, and he did this while Uranus was in Taurus, but like this is so Uranus and like Gemini, just energy. It's just like this. It's like the seeding of it, and this is what we've seen in the last 8 years of the people who have risen to prominence. I'm just thinking of people on like the right wing right now. Which would be like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and all, like, who aren't going with this Trump agenda or anything like that, who have really risen up. And they did this during Uranus and Taurus, and they spoke this truth to like power and stuff like that. And it's like the same kind of energy of like nailing something onto the to the castle church, just like, what, I'm done. I don't care if you cut off my head. Like we're gonna like go there. And so we've seen people really go there. And then talking about in this time period, we're about to get into like where this takes off once Uranus does go into Gemini. I like Diet of Worms better. Oh, man. All right. Oh, I was going to pull that. Yeah, so the 95 Theses here. Let me grab that chart. I think that is, we got the Fall of Athens. 95. So the 95 Theses here. So this is like when it was still, it was in early degrees of Taurus right there. It is funny though, because the moon was in Gemini. So there goes your Gemini energy right there. And then it's opposing Mercury, the ruler of Gemini right there, in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius rules politics, it rules religion, it rules all this. So it was like, his internal world at the time. And, this has to do a little bit with his chart and stuff too. But you could say the internal world of the collective, because I'm a mundane astrologer mainly. So like that's really where I shine is talking about the collective, how these charts hit the collectives and looking at these event charts. So really, but the internal like world or the emotional states, of the collective was at odds with the church. And it's funny too, because with this one, we just use a 12 noon chart. So you can take these houses with a grain of salt, but I also find it, I wouldn't be surprised if it was actually around noon and you had the 10th house being in Sagittarius there, because that goes against the structures. It goes against the people in, I don't want to like say people in power necessarily, like that's 10th house, but like that, it's that Capricorn energy. It's these structures that are already in place. And then this would be the structures that are around, like I said, politics, religion, because it was a political statement too. Politics and religion were intertwined at that time. They were one and the same, essentially. And then Ceres being there too is interesting. It's an asteroid. Ceres deals with like this motherly energy. There's also like a harvest energy to it. I don't use asteroids as much. I'm trying to kind of use them a little bit more. So feel free to add more to that though if you want to. But I do see that as like a motherly placement there. And so it's interesting. It's like, okay, this whole why are you acting like you're our mommy kind of thing going on with that. So but yeah, so this was early degrees of Taurus here that we had. And then it's interesting too, we've got, I think we actually get one of these charts where it's by Algol. So we'll keep an eye out for that here. It might be the Diet of Worms. It's gonna be hard for me. I'll have to say it correctly during the stream, but it's gonna be hard for me not to say it now. Let's see here. Oh wait, was this? Okay, yeah. And then we have Dieter Worms. So Luther stands before the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, and his quote, "Here I stand, I can do no other. God help me, Amen." And I think here we were still in Uranus Taurus, but this is like in that year or two before. This is where we start to have that activation that happens. And we felt that as we've been in Uranus and Taurus, we've still seen these themes come on. And I would argue like about a year and a half, 2 years before it really came on. So this is, if I remember right, the same time frame as that. So, and let's just grab that chart really quick. Oh, wait, no, I'm going too far here. Here we go. And so for that one, yeah, late degrees, right there on Algol. That's so funny. And he was actually under trial to lose his head. And you have the conjunction to Mercury, which rules the mind. It was for the things that he was thinking, that he was speaking out loud. There's that conjunction. It's a loose conjunction, I'll say, to both of them. But I would consider that just because Uranus is a bigger planet. I'll give it 4 degrees. I'm usually a 3-degree kind of guy, unless it's a luminary. I'll give it 4 degrees. So yeah, that's really fascinating. And with this, okay, this is a noon chart, so we won't really get into the houses or anything. I couldn't find a time on this. We just gave it a noon chart. Let's see, anything else that sticks out here? We got to kind of move through these a little bit faster, but this is where we're spending the majority of the stream, so I'll try to see. Oh, interesting. So we had the eclipse before that was in Aries, and then in Libra too, so that's kind of interesting. I think what that tells me, a lot of change around the self and around like diplomacy, politics. When you're talking about like on the world scale, and of course Libra doesn't rule politics, but it does rule diplomacy. And so it's kind of, that's just interesting. So there's huge changes around that. And then like, what is this whole trial that they're doing right now? With Dieter Worms, this whole trial is like a diplomatic sense of it, yes, but there's like a political thing, and there's a whole diplomacy at play. And what comes out of the Dieter Worms, because I was talking about how this whole thing that happened, the Dieter Worms, was an assembly that happened. So he had to come before the assembly, and I think this is in the PowerPoint, so let's keep moving here. It might not be. Okay, but he had to go in front of, the Holy Roman Emperor, and there were a lot of other people there. And so that's like really what we see come up, is that there's this whole play on like, how diplomatic can I be? How can I like argue my case? That kind of stuff. The September Testament. So this is the German New Testament here. This is 1522. I believe by this time, I think that we might have been late degrees of Taurus here, but because I didn't put that one down. But we're pretty much moving into Uranus and Gemini. So we essentially, like, as Uranus is moving into Gemini, that's where you see he's actually able to, after making the statement, after planting the seed during Uranus and Taurus, he's able to get this out to the masses. He's able to have what would be considered the first viral document. His pamphlet was like the first viral document. I have that it's somewhere in another slide. I don't know. But and then we had the German Peasants' War. So this is 100,000 peasants that were killed as a political consequence of the vernacular Bible reading. So people were being killed for reading this, and this is something we're going to see come up in this time. There's going to be some information comes out. What's it going to be? Is it going to be the Epstein files? Is it going to be something? But we know we've been lied to about so much for so long, for the last Uranus cycle, which has been 84 years. And a lot of this stuff is going to come cascading out, and they are going to clamp down on people. And I would even go as far to say they may try to kill people who actually are talking about this stuff and are getting access to this information. It's really, we're at an incredible time to be alive, guys. Because if you're sitting here watching this, like, this is nothing to be scared about. Like, we're here for this, to help people during this time. We are here to lead during this time. And so this is, a lot of other people are going to be really scared by what they see going on around us. But like, these are things that we have to go through in order for things to get better and have the life that we know we can have. I'm sure a lot of us at some point or another have been into the whole idea of being a star seed, and the New Age movement. Now, I have a lot of complaints with the New Age movement, but I would still consider myself on some level a new ager. On some level, but I'm like, I really went back and deconstructed the New Age movement. There's a lot I don't like with it, but but I could say loosely I consider myself a New Ager, and like this is really what it's about here. Like this is why we came here, to uplift humanity. And so we're going to see a lot of this stuff, and it's just nothing to be scared of. It's just going to be a lot going on. It's going to be very loud, and look at the last Uranus and Gemini transit that we had. This was during World War II. All of a sudden, things were loud all the time. There was no escaping it. Everyone had to contribute to the war effort, you know? And that's the thing, is when you're all contributing to this war effort and there's no rest, like what do we see? We see jobs being lost. We see AI being built up and built up and built up, as if we're going to go into some type of AI arms race. So what kind of conscription is going to be happening going forward for people who lose their jobs and need some kind of way to get money? This is why it's so important to be financially independent right now. Because if you can be like that, then you won't get conscripted to the war effort at home. And I'm not even talking about the military draft. That's a whole separate thing. You know, we could go into that. I'm not going to go into it. But that's what's so important about being able to work for yourself, be some type of have some type of financial independence, have some value that you can provide people during these times, because they'll be conscripted into this AI arms race. We're all building up the AI stuff. We've taken control of the Western Hemisphere. This is why you see the Greenland stuff, the Canada annexation stuff, the Cuba stuff, the Venezuela stuff. We will have taken over. This is going to happen over, you know, it's going to happen like fast, but also like not fast. You know, it's over the next 8 years, but it's going to be very fast. And so we just need to be ready for that, because all of these countries are going to be racing against each other to come up with the best AI, to come up with the best weapons. In World War II, we saw new weapons come about, all of that. So these are just things to be aware of. And that whole German Peasants' War just kind of brings me into it, because, you know, we're going to see a lot of people die. First adult baptism, Tyndale's English New Testament. Okay, so this is what's interesting, and then this is where I don't think I have. Did I grab that chart? I think I did grab that chart. The first New Testament. Maybe not. See, oh no. Okay, no, I didn't. But yeah, Tyndale's English New Testament, smuggled into England in bales of cloth, the foundation of every later English translation, including King James. Tyndale will be strangled and burned in 1536. So this is like once we're out of, yeah, we would be out of Uranus and Gemini by that time. But what I found interesting about when he smuggles the New Testament in through there, so of course we have Uranus and Gemini during that time. But what I found interesting is when the North Node conjuncted Pluto. I think it was in Capricorn. Oh yeah, I wrote the note right there. Yeah, but the North Node conjuncted Pluto in Capricorn, so this was a very fateful thing to get that New Testament out. And then this is where we see this is a seed that we see planted that brings about the King James Bible later on. All right, and then so we went over the Deed of Worms. Now the Deed of Spear. The Deed of Worms, I forgot to say, by the way, guys, this was where we really saw this acceptance within Germany, at least, and the people under control of Emperor Charles V. And then the Deed of Spear is where the clampdown came. You know, so right now we're in this sweet little window where we've seen information on X, all this stuff like isn't being censored, like they're kind of just letting people go with it. But there is going to be a clamp down moment. So they clamp down on Lutheranism at this time during and this is a two-part thing. So there's two Deeds of Spear. One is in 1526, one is in 1529. And then we had the Deed of Worms, which was, I believe it was 1524. I can't see it right here. I might not have written it down yet, but I think it was like 1524. Yeah, roughly around there. It might have even been a little earlier, like 1519, 1518. But yeah, both of these, both Deeds of Spear would have been, one was at the ass end of Uranus Gemini, and then the other one was like in the midst of Uranus Gemini, like right in the middle of it or something. I've got the charts though for both of these, so I'll pull that up here. But essentially with the Deed of Spear, it was that was where it came forward, where it was accepted. The Diet of Worms was where Martin Luther had to argue his case and ended up being sheltered by a man, and I will get into his name. And this is where the word Protestant is also born. And then, but the second Diet of Speyer, that one was where they did the clampdown. So 26 is where it opened up to the world, through Germany and through its, I guess, the people that were under the Holy Roman Emperorship. And then the clampdown was in 1529. I believe it was after the old emperor died, or something happened. Yep, we kind of know about this. With Martin Luther, we went over who he was. Okay, so he believed and this is the thing. So he believed himself living in the end times. We'll go over more figures too. But in each of these periods, everyone thinks they're living in the end times, except for maybe the first one in the fall of Athens. But everyone thinks they're believing in the end times, or they're living in the end times. Excuse me. And so, like, something to look out for. People are gonna literally think it's the end times. They're gonna think it's the end time, and it'll even some of the best amongst us in the spiritual community will think that, because of such a convergence of stuff. And whether it is they want to go into the metaverse and get the chip from Elon Musk and all this and that whole thing, which is a separate video I'll do on that, with what we call the eighth sphere. But whether it's that, whether they're tied into one of the religions, whether it's a new type of religion that rises, which has been a prediction I've had for about a year now with Neptune and Aries. They're like a new religion rising too, that's going to funnel people in. I think it will be around alien gods, personally. You see they're kind of dropping the alien stuff. They've got these pastors and ministers. I'll go over this tomorrow in my news show, but they've got these like pastors, ministers coming out that are talking about how they all got debriefed by the government, apparently, on aliens and stuff. And this gets into the seeds that people like J.D. Vance, who is really just Peter Thiel's washed up blood boy, if you want to say that. if you know what a blood boy is, then if you know. But no, really, Peter Thiel he created J.D. Vance. And so you have to imagine J.D. Vance as a tech bro. And what do we see Peter Thiel doing right now? Peter Thiel is going around giving these speeches on the Antichrist. He's trying to, as one of the tech bros, as one of these oligarchs, he's trying to ingratiate himself with the Christian evangelicals. And so that whole evangelical wing of people, especially if you know someone, whether they're older than you, same age, but I'm thinking like around between the ages of like 40s to like 60, 70, maybe even 80, those kind of people who are evangelicals, Christians, just like your standard Christian in America. Be very careful as these times go on. Not be careful about being around them or anything, but like as these times go on, kind of just keep an eye on them, and like how much they get into the tech stuff, how much they buy into the J.D. Vance, Donald Trump stuff and all that, because this is like the whole tech bro thing. They're going to do the alien stuff. They're going to co-opt religion with it, and they're going to sweep everyone away. And there is like some type of new ideology that comes in with that, because Neptune rules ideology. We're talking about Uranus and Gemini, but there's this play that's going on. This is the convergence of planets, the convergence of the eschatologies. Oh yeah, I'm. Oh my gosh, I'm sure Sydney. Yeah, Gen Z right now. Gen Z they're really like going hard on the Catholicism. I like it right now as like a way for them to get out of the degeneracy, get out of watching all of the, what rhymes with corn. I do like it to get them to step away from that. I would say even I engaged with that for like a year, just to like get myself out of a lot of just darker stuff that I really fell into with like especially like with substances and all that. But I don't think it's a permanent solution. And I think they're going to take this movement and they're going to totally pull it into something, and they're not even going to realize they're there until it's like, whoa, like what is going on right now? And then Pope Leo, it's interesting because we have a Pope Leo during this time, and our new guy is yeah, I agree. Too much of anything is yeah, and that's like, it's funny too because we've got Pope Leo, I always say that Jupiter is the planet of too much, and Jupiter is about to go into Leo, and we have Pope Leo, and I just think we get a lot of play on like God with Jupiter, and I think we're gonna see a lot of people get way too into God. Like God is gonna be way too much they're gonna be doing way too much with God, and they're gonna be like asking God for too much and making structuring their whole life around it. This is only a 1 year thing, so I think we're only gonna see it for like the next year or two, and then a lot of people will correct. But yeah, there was a Pope Leo during this time, and our new Pope is Pope Leo. And I'll keep going, but I think we're just about kind of done. I think I had two more charts for this section. Then we wrap up with a couple more, and we get into the modern times here. But one thing I wanted to say, since it's just fresh in my head, because I don't want to forget, look at with Pope, because the whole idea is that Uranus is in charge of the Christian eschatology and wanting to be. It needs more cowbell. Sedona Angel. So Uranus is really in charge of these mechanisms for the Christian eschatology, the idea of the Christian end times coming forth, all of that, and these themes coming back up in this eschatological convergence. Well, what do we see right now? Because Pope Leo, I'm not even tying him to that, because he's part of the Catholic Church, which isn't part of this Protestant evangelical eschatology kind of thing that's going on. I would say the head of the church right now for Christianity is Donald Trump. If you really, I'll make the case, Reba, if you really think about it, because all the evangelicals follow him. Those are the only supporters he still has left, are like evangelicals who think Israel's our greatest ally and all this stuff. Like that's the supporters right now. And then he just got into it with Pope Leo, our current Pope Leo, and he was just going back and forth and being like really weird about Christianity. He was honestly being like blasphemous. It was insane. And I just like see this weird convergence of when you're dealing with the planetary associations of these two ones, which is like the Uranus and Gemini. And then I would even say it's like a more of a Pluto and Aquarius type of thing, or even it's like Neptune, Aries. The Catholicism isn't included in the major three eschatologies because they're essentially the same, but it is this weird like fight over power to lead the Christians between Trump and the Pope. And I think that's what threatened it. But I don't want to get too off track. I just think that's very interesting to note during this, is Trump is a very Uranian force. So Uranus plays a huge part in his chart. And I thought that that's very interesting to bring up, because that was freaking just, it was so cringe to watch. And then, yeah, so there's the Emperor Charles V. We already went over him. And then Frederick III. So this is the guy I mentioned we'd go over, who was Luther's political protector. He hid him at Wartburg Castle after the Diet of Worms, where Luther translated the New Testament into German. And so that was like really where that happened. And this was after the Diet of Worms. So it probably it could have been the last degree of Uranus Taurus, or right into Uranus Gemini right there. Key figures. Really, I don't see any of these important to go into right now, these key figures, except for John Calvin, which is the founder of Calvinism. We pulled up the 5 points of tulip earlier, so we don't need to go into that. But this is that strain, Calvinism, that produces the Puritans, Pilgrims, United States, all that. It's important to know. So eschatological lineage. Luther identified the Pope as the Antichrist. Well, that's really interesting. Who are people saying is the Antichrist again? You know, that's really interesting. So, I mean, the one I'm hearing the most is Donald Trump. But then, you know, you can even make the argument of Bibi Netanyahu. But aren't they one and the same? Aren't they just one and the same at this point? It's whatever Bibi wants, Trump's gonna do. So. You know, like, but he believed the apocalypse was imminent. We went over that. The Reformation itself was eschatological in his mind. And so it was about, like, doing the Reformation in order to, like, essentially restore the true church before Christ's return. So, and this is we see a little bit of this play later on, and we'll get into it, there is some injection of what is Zionism, and this is where we see a bit of a merging of, I guess you could say, the eschatology of feeling that things need to be restored in a certain way before the end times come about and Christ returns. I mean, he pulled the chair out for beat. It like at that point, it was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on, and people were just like, well, it's 4D chess, man. Like I'm just like, look, man, maybe I never rule anything out, but I'm not gonna sit around and wait and see and like get my ass fucked. Like I'm good on that. Like we're going to start a peaceful, by the way, a peaceful revolution. And I think we'll have a lot more luck than putting all our eggs into like one basket on one side or the other. We need to like get rid of these political parties. Like we all want the same thing. I have so many friends of like such a varied political spectrum. We all want the same shit. You know what I mean? We all want like some kind of like no one wants like things as far as like the left has gone. No one wants things as far as the right has gone. We want some kind of happy medium of like what early 2000s, late 90s kind of stuff. Like where it is kind of pretty centrist. Like everyone is pretty equal in that's like really what we're looking for is that in terms of the social dynamic. And it's not saying let's like go back. I don't believe in like going back like, oh, well, we just need to go back to, this gets into what we were talking about. We just need to go back to like straight up Catholicism and all that. And like, that's useful for a time if you need to like recenter yourself. I just don't think that's the solution though, personally. The medieval church had largely tamed apocalyptic thinking. The Reformation reawakens it. Premillennialism, that's like a term that really just has to deal with end times. Premillennialism, I won't really expound upon that. Identification of contemporary events with biblical prophecy. Yeah. I mean, this is all stuff that we see back. Thomas Müntzer, he led the peasants into that whole thing at the Peasants' Revolt. That was the other chart. We're going to glance at it really quick, guys. We don't want to get like too stuck because we got to get into the Salem witch trials. This is going to like be the best part. Well, I mean, it's like this is technically the best part because it's got the most gems in it, but the Salem witch trials are really cool. So we'll get into that. Where was it? German Peasants' War. So yeah, this is just a war that started it's just another Uranus and Gemini. I just wanted the chart pulled up so you could see it. I wanted to be able to reference it later when we start to see stuff pop off. So you'll see me come back to this chart. I don't know, man. Probably not this year, probably like early next year, but you'll definitely see me come back to this chart. So all right. The Munster Rebellion. Neptune ingresses Aries, too. So, yeah. So, oh, yeah. So, I guess I was that the German Peasants' War? 1534? This is 24. This is Gregorian. I think this is the same event. Because I had to, yeah, this is the Gregorian calendar. Okay. I accidentally put this one in as Gregorian and not the Julian calendar. So excuse me. But yeah. So this ends up being like roughly the same date. Okay. Dang, talk about a drift. Holy moly. Okay, so radical Anabaptists take over the city of Munster, declare it the new. Okay, this is fucking crazy. Okay, so what we keep hearing this whole idea of like the New Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem. I gotta like, I'll switch to you. We keep hearing this whole idea of the New Jerusalem. And this is something that we just saw happen in this time, 1534, 1535, the Munster Rebellion. Oh my goodness. So another case in present day times that is going to reflect the Uranus in Gemini aspect we're going on, and even the Neptune and Aries thing that's going on too right now. We need the New Jerusalem. We need the new temple. We have to do it quickly before the Messiah arrives. Now, they aren't outwardly saying this, but this is going to start coming out. And we've got this confluence of the UFO stuff. All of the religious stuff has been running under the scenes, but it's going to start to surface here soon, where we've got our political leaders talking about it, especially if we see something like an assassination or death of Donald Trump like that. that comes forward and JD Vance takes over, like, I'm sorry, Trump's really, really bad, but Vance will be so much worse if he takes over. We do not want him. And then he'll bring the political radicalism into it too. He'll lean into that shit. So, no, no, no. Yeah, there's the New Jerusalem, new temple, all that stuff. They'll start talking about the return of Christ, the return of Jesus and all that. And these will be running alongside an eschatology, which is essentially incompatible with it. That is the Jewish eschatology, which does not believe that Christ is the Lord and Savior or anything. It more believes, from their Talmud, that they believe that Jesus Christ is burning in hell in a vat of boiling shit and piss, is essentially what it says, along with his mother Mary Magdalene. So this is why they spit on Christian statues. This is why they spit on Christians in general in Israel. This is why they hate Christianity and they hate Christ. And I'm not even, you guys know how I feel about it. I'm not like trying to be like, oh, like we need to be Christians. Christianity is the ultimate truth. And, like I'm a huge fan of Christ and of Jesus's teachings. And I try not to really go further than that. You know what I mean? But no, really the problem with that is when you're a country that is founded on Christianity, or at the very least Christian values, then that is like kind of an issue when they're supposed to be our greatest ally. That's it. They're just so. Let's get back into this though. Crushed brutally, the leaders' bodies displayed in iron cages on the church tower. Excuse me, let me get closer. Leaders' bodies displayed in iron cages on the church tower, and so. Yeah, I'm all, for some reason I feel like this, we've kind of already seen this, but I'm not thinking of an event off the top of my head. But we're gonna be seeing that today. The cage is still hanging there in the same square too. That's wild. So, but yeah, New Jerusalem. Let me up. There we go. Did I skip one? Okay. Why Uranus Gemini is the operating mechanism. So obviously this is the thing I'm trying to talk about, and I'm trying not to confuse this and confound it with other religions and all that, because all three of these placements, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, they all are going to have some type of religious, spiritual kind of thing going on with it, just because of the nature of the placements and the planets themselves. But the argument I'm making is that for the Christian eschatology, Uranus in Gemini is the operating mechanism of it. It doesn't mean that other planets aren't going to be related in things about it, because you saw me starting to dip into other planets and all that, but the operating mechanism is Uranus in Gemini. So, so let's look at like reasons why, and this gets into other time cycles too, or other eras. The printing press is developed during the previous Uranus and Gemini transit. And so the Gutenberg Bible. And if you remember at the beginning, I was saying that the thing from the prior cycle, it comes up and it gets weaponized in some type of way. And so you could say that Martin Luther used the whole idea of the printing press, which came about in the prior Uranus and Gemini cycle, and he weaponized it against the Catholic Church. And then the word in Gemini's domain, vernacular language, mass communication, the printed text. So we went over that, but Uranus is the disruptor that tears the word out of the gatekeeper's hands. Sola Scriptura. Yep. And this is really just like, we have the whole Sola Scriptura thing, and we went over it. It's really more about like, okay, well, not even the kingdom of heaven is within me, but you can say that too. But it's more just like if I study the Bible, I have direct communion and connection with God, with Jesus Christ. And that's really what it's saying. Like, I don't need the church as a mediator. I don't need to adhere to everything in the Bible, word for word, line for line. And it's because we know how much they've altered the Bible and all that. So the schism itself is Geminian, Let's talk about that schism, the splitting, So really, when we talk about the splitting of the worlds in the present time, that's what we need to be focused on, is how are we going to see in one major ideology, and it's going to be somewhere adjacent or tied to this Christian eschatology, there's going to be this splitting of the worlds, and the schism that happens within society, and there's this weird play that it's going to have off of it. But the whole thing, I can be much more descriptive with the next couple of planets because they're dealing with different planets. The whole idea with Uranus is we can't imagine how it's going to look. That's always how it is with Uranus. And this is any Uranus transit. Like it's the disruptor, and it's the last thing you're thinking about is the way it actually plays out. So we can kind of give it some flavor here, but it's going to come out of left field in a way we really just can't expect that was sitting right in front of us the whole time. The pamphlet wars, yep. And then this is Luther, the most published author of the 16th century. So, like, and when I said it's his pamphlet's the most viral thing ever, you have to think about how people weren't able to access the Bible. So you could say, like, well, the Bible's the most printed text of all time, but it didn't have that same virality because people had to go through the priesthood in order. If anything, you can argue maybe the Bible became the most viral in this Uranus-Gemini transit after Luther when he translated it into German and all that stuff. Then, but this deals with like the same event, essentially, the pamphlets and all that. Because the pamphlets essentially came out Uranus-Taurus, but then he published the new one during the new Bible during Uranus-Gemini, or like right at the end of Uranus-Taurus, but it was viral in Uranus-Gemini. So watch for the stuff that ends up becoming virality in our current age. Let's see. Yeah, Catholic monoliths of 1,500 years, half shattered in 8 years. That's crazy. Deep fractal invention, then weaponization. So yeah, prior Uranus Gemini invents the printing press. This one uses printing press to break their church. So what did we see invented? Well, my thing is there's a lot of stuff that we saw invented, and we're going to see them used in new and different ways and against the people. But what I would argue is in my last stream, I went over Uranus Gemini in the relation of the missing scientists. I went over Uranus Gemini in 1947, connecting the Roswell event to the missing scientists of 1988 and the current missing scientists, which the 1988 ones had a playoff of Uranus conjunction that seeded it. And then we're back in Uranus Gemini now. There's that Uranus Taurus thing I was talking about earlier, how these kind of things prop up, when we're still in Uranus and Taurus. But what I was getting into with that is there's the Roswell technology, and it's been being used. A lot of this stuff that we see is reverse engineered, and it's our own stuff, And I think this is how we're going to see in terms of a fake alien invasion of some sort, or some type of psychological operation, whether it's blue beam or whatever. But that comes from the previous Uranus and Gemini cycle. And I think that's going to be used against the people in this cycle. And another one that you could do, if nukes are even real, with all the psyops they pull on us, but if nukes are real, like, sure, you could say, like, they drop nukes, like, they're kind of like, I could totally see Israel dropping a nuke. They're, like, batshit insane. But I really lean in towards, like, it's like something with the play with Pluto, it's something hidden coming out that did come about in the last cycle. And I think it's going to be something more along the lines of like the UFO stuff. And that's really what scares them, because that has such more, it's got like a wider destructive capability than you can see with atomic weapons, nuclear weapons, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then the modern echoes. Internet's the new printing press. Social media is the new pamphlet war. AI is the new vernacular Bible. I like that. AI is the new vernacular Bible. So true. Wow, that's incredible. And it's almost like it breaks through the gatekeeping that we have of trying to consolidate information. And it just like, it lets us into the same environment that the elites have been working with since the last Uranus and Gemini cycle, where they actually had earlier versions of AI. They're able to collect all of this data on us for so many years, cross-reference it, and come up with theories and models and have it run patterns and all that. And that's a part of all this I didn't even bring up is AI. Could be something that we see from the last cycle that comes forward in this cycle that's weaponized, that also is used as breaking through the gatekeepers. Truth liberated or weaponized by every individual with a phone. It's just incredible. AI is like, it's a gift, but it's also like anything that we've made that's a gift. Even electricity, it's going to be used for bad stuff. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like, I understand where it's going with AI, but man, I mean, and this gets into human design and the whole idea of the cross of planning that's going away, and why we've seen in the last year and a half specifically more and more people adopting AI, more and more people leaning on AI to save themselves time, which I even did for this. I have my own AI on my computer that I'm starting to build out and getting myself ready to have my own standalone AI server and machine, because we're not going to have access to these tools forever. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, all of these, we're not going to have access to these forever. These are going to be taken from us at some point, and this gets into the whole opening of the floodgates with the deed of spires, or spears rather, the deed of spears, and then all of a sudden clamping down on the floodgates. So we got I think 3 years tops for AI, for us to have it accessible, to have it in the same level of computing power. They've already majorly dumbed it down, and so that's kind of a move that I'm making, is having my own personal AI, right? Like that I can run all sorts of things on. I don't have limits on, that kind of thing. So yeah, but I've got that. And then I've just got my Claude, which I do pay for the extra for the usage, because you get way more usage for $20 a month. I'll take it. But it made this for me, I would have spent, this would have taken me 2.5 weeks to come up to make on my own all of the information I had to cross-reference. I scrubbed subtitles from videos and lectures of some of the best scholars that I know, where I'm like, I need this information, but I need it consolidated. It had to comb through so much information, and it was able to, for the most part, get a lot of stuff good. I definitely had to go through yesterday and correct some things, especially with the astrology stuff, because it's not really the best with astrology. It's like 70% accurate. So I had to go and correct astrology, but the things it can pull are incredible. So I hate to go on that whole tangent there, but okay, we got to get to Salem, guys. We got to keep on track. Splintering of unified institutions, mainstream media, the academy, public health authority. Anyone can publish. Everyone is their own pope. And then our first American pope taking the name Leo for the first time since Leo the Eighth, which was Saturn in Aries at that time, because I went back to that Leo the Eighth, and then that was a Saturn in Aries moment, which is funny because the institutional aspect of Christianity would be Saturnian, and maybe if I want to even tie a specific Catholic eschatology to one of the planets, I could tie it to Saturn, but that's just kind of a thought I'm having right now. I'd have to look into that. The papal name itself is a tell. Yeah, so, oh, geez, sorry. Joe Rogan, Tucker, Independent Substacks versus CNN, New York Times, the credential class. So we see this same pattern where it's like the institutions no longer have credibility. And this is what was happening during the time of the Reformation, is the people were like, no, we're just going to kind of do our own thing with religion. And we're going to kind of, because religion was everyone's life back then. You couldn't operate in society without being part of the religion, so, but if you think about it in a societal sense, which is very Iranian, then that's the same thing we see going on right now. It's like, actually, we'll just come up with our own news, because you guys are you just keep lying to us, and you keep over exerting your power. I'm good on it, So that's really what's going on there. Just the same thing coming right back. Charts to pull. I think I got all the charts. We'll just double check, but we can move on to the next section here. And these sections will be shorter, guys. This is where the bulk of it was. So I just wanted to... Deets. Oh, yeah. That was the only thing. The 2 dates for the Deets of Spear. So, so halfway through... So this is, like I'm saying, guys, this is 3 years tops, because the first time of the Deets of Spear, this is where the floodgates open. So so about 3 years. And then the next one is that it's literally, it's what, 2 years later? 3 years later. So so we could maybe stretch that out to 5 years. 5 years, because I was kind of thinking of the degrees wrong in my head when I said that. But 5 years. So we've got access to the type of AI we have access to for 5 years, and they clamp down. That's what I view in how it comes about now. Yeah, because it's right there, 16 degrees, and then we're over here at 21 degrees with a hard aspect to Neptune as well. And that aspect to Neptune was not there before, was it? Is that... Yeah, because that's 13. Oh no, it was there. Okay, interesting. But there's like the Chiron right there. Anyway, I can't get stuck on this. I gotta keep moving. All right, then we have I thought Salem was next. It must be the one after this, but we've got Galileo. There's only one chart for this, so this would have been the cycle afterwards. This is the next Uranus Gemini cycle. So this transit matters because the previous transit broke the religious monolith. This one breaks the cosmological one, and it produced the foundational text of English Protestantism, which travels to the New World on the Mayflower 15 years later after this. And so, yeah, like that's I don't want to go down that path because because I had to do a lot of other research on terms, which had me doing other research, and then I like learned even more, which I already know a lot about history. But yeah, 1604, King James the First commissions New English Bible translation. So it's interesting. So it like kind of comes full circle again in a new way. That's very fascinating. And this is where the King James Bible comes from. Oh, interesting. This guy Cervantes. I know he's a legendary author. Cervantes publishes a motto where the protagonist cannot tell information from reality. That's just very interesting with what we have going on now. The virtual world and everything. Like some people can't discern information from reality. They think what they read online and the information they read online it carries over into their reality. And this is where we get the huge ideological stuff that we're seeing, and it's not just on the left. I mean, that's the easiest. It's like super on the right too, but it's just that's kind of where I guess the spotlight is on the left for it. But it's just like there's woke left, there's woke right. You know what I mean? And it's like you don't want to be either of them right now. Like I think right now a good place to be is in the center, personally. Gunpowder plot, Catholic conspiracy to blow up Parliament failed, but radicalized English and anti-Catholicism for years. It's interesting because this is like V for Vendetta. This is like it's based off of that V for Vendetta. Even though V for Vendetta is placed in like present day times, this is based off the gunpowder plot, and I think they use that term in there too. It's been a while since I watched it. Founding of Jamestown. Isn't Jamestown where they all vanished from? Tell me if I'm wrong. Isn't that the place they all vanished from? Or what? No. What was that place? That's in American Horror Story. It's Roanoke. Is it Roanoke? That was Roanoke, right? Hans Lippershey applies for a telescope patent in Netherlands. Okay, cool. And so yeah, and then Galileo improves the telescope and turns it to the heavens. Then he finds okay. So let me find. We'll kind of burn through this a little bit. The important thing was discovery of Jupiter's moons, right here. And then we had Uranus and Gemini. Yep, that's conjunct Jupiter. Nice, good conjunction there. And they're both in trine to Saturn right there. Saturn in Aquarius. I like that. I haven't even, guys, I pulled these charts. I haven't even really looked at any of these, so I'm just kind of like having a little fun with you right now. Oh, it was Jonestown. Oh, Jamestown. Oh, never mind. I see what you guys are talking about. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, well, and the moon is there too. And the moon, you could say, I mean, it's a loose conjunction, but it's Jupiter, so because moon's a luminary. So, like personally, sun and the moon luminaries, I'll give those 5 degrees, and the rest I give 3 degrees. And I tend to be pretty strict with it. But moon and Jupiter has an orb of influence. The moon's a luminary. I could stretch that to 6 degrees. I'll just call it a loose conjunction though. But all that right there in Gemini. Especially the moon being interesting because it's like a heavenly body that we see. Saturn, which is career, discovery of this planet happens with Saturn in Aquarius. I don't have his chart or anything like that. I knew I just wouldn't be able to pull up event charts and personal charts. I just knew I couldn't. But but Saturn, Aquarius is the heavens. So and Saturn's the career planet and all that. It's the public image. It's what you're putting out to the world. So it's so funny because you got that Saturn in Aquarius, these great aspects. Pluto's at the first degree of Taurus right there. And what is that? That's trying to Chiron, I believe. It should be Chiron. I know I have Chiron aspected. Yeah, it's Chiron trine. Nice trine. And then that's Chiron at the last degree of Sagittarius, too, which is, the archer that's pointing up into the heavens, too. Find that to be interesting. With, Mercury there, which kind of gets back into this dispositor of Gemini. And then Venus there, which is interesting because that's going to disposit back over to, you can say either Libra or Taurus, but there's nothing in Libra. So then Taurus, which has that Pluto there. And then Taurus is also containing, some of these really, well, not all of them, but some hopeful stuff here, which is like Alcyone, that's the Pleiades, You've even got Vesta right there, too. And this is kind of where you can see the play off of, I guess, what would it be, like the church and Galileo, because how Galileo, and then this is why Pluto is in there as well too. I find that interesting. But Galileo had this thing that he went back and forth with the church, and he refused to recant, if I remember correctly, or maybe he did at one point. It's been a while since I read that. But then he ultimately didn't, or it's something like that. I'll get rid of that. 4 moons on Jupiter. Mountains on the moon. And so this is where you can kind of get into the whole, do we discover a new planet? Does this have to do with aliens and whatever they're going to drop on us there? I feel like if there was a planet, would we know about it? But then people talk about Planet X. People talk about the whole planet that's behind the sun at all times, so we never see it. There's that kind of stuff. But, it's something we can look out for, discovery of a new planet. Mountains on the moon. Rings of Saturn. He thinks they're ears. That's funny. Imagine Saturn with ears. Salem had the freaky fungus. Oh, God. The freaky fungus, Josie, is that... would that have resembled any... Was it black? Was the fungus black? Or does it have any time with the black goo? I've always been interested in the black goo. And I know quite a bit about it too, but King James Bible, foundational text of English Protestantism for the next 4 years. Galileo demonstrates his telescope to the Roman Curia the same year. Shakespeare writes The Tempest, likely his last solo play. Oh, that's a soliloquy play, if I remember correctly. 1613, Galileo's letters on sunspots explicitly endorses Copernican heliocentrism. Yeah, wow, I didn't realize he also discovered sunspots. That's pretty cool. When the Puritans crossed to America in 1620, they bring the King James Bible with them. We kind of talked about this, how it would end up being used later, like 100-something years later from the prior Uranus and Gemini. So it was because that would have been when you get to the 80, what is it, 84 years, and then, yeah. So, okay. And I haven't even pulled up necessarily, because where is this at? Oh, yeah, that levels out. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, guys, I'm just... And then they read Revelation as a literal blueprint for the new world. And this is actually where you get Manifest Destiny. When people start doing the whole Manifest Destiny thing, which I think really peaks during the next cycle, if I'm correct. The next Uranus cycle, Manifest Destiny. Key figures: Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, King James I, of the King James Bible. He survived the gunpowder plot, famously paranoid about witchcraft, wrote a book called, I've heard someone say this word before. I'm totally going to butcher it. Demonology, okay. William Shakespeare, okay, and then eschatological threads. See, this one's a bit faster, guys, and then the next two will be even. I'll probably spend a little more time on Salem. I think we've been, we're okay. We're getting a little tight on time. I like to keep it 2 to 2.5 hours, so we're on track at least for 2.5. Eschatological threads. The geocentric universe was theological. Earth at the center, heavens above, hell below. Inseparable from Catholic eschatology. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's really the thing is, like, it moves us away from that. There are some things. I mean, there's people. There are plenty of people who watch this and who are going to be who are astrologers or they're into astrology, and at least for those of us who are astrologers, like we understand the power on the psyche and the necessity for geocentrism, at least in our work. Now, it doesn't mean we can't pull charts that are solar charts and that are I forget that aren't geocentric, that are like actual solar centric. I'm forget heliocentric. Thank you. But yeah, the Last Judgment was supposed to happen at at a specific place. Galileo's telescope made the literal cosmology of Christian eschatology untenable, and that's the thing is that could be also something we see because when did so this happens earlier. Interesting. It's a curveball we can throw in there. Finding out something as people are freaking out about end times that arguably disproves it, but there will be people who don't let go of it. And this could be. Oh, let me go back. This could be. I keep wanting to jump over to alien stuff because that's the stuff from the last. Well, that's when they appeared. It's the last Uranus cycle from the one we're in now. I immediately want to think alien stuff where it challenges religion. People think it's the end times, and then something about that. Yeah, there's such a confluence of events too that we're really coming up on. It's like it's exciting. I think it's exciting. The gunpowder plot burned anti-Catholic apocalyptic theology into English political identity. The Pope as Antichrist became structural. Huh. Interesting. It seems like that did end up fading away. Well, actually no, because you had this would have been I think this is around the time of King Henry and his schism from the church too. So yeah, but that all right, and then modern echoes. So Galileo's telescope. This is where we get the whole idea of the James Webb telescope that we just had. So now, like, we're getting all of these ideas of earlier galaxies that really shouldn't exist. We're seeing things through the James Webb telescope that are messing with our cosmology. And soon, hopefully, the laws of physics will change with that because they've created through. Now, I believe in quantum mechanics in the sense of everything being connected. I don't believe and don't agree and reject the preface under which modern quantum mechanics was created with Max Planck. I think that there's so many things that you have to reconcile and that you have to put freaking band-aids on, and that's our whole entire theory of physics. Like I do like Einstein, and I don't believe in throwing out all of his stuff, but there's this whole idea with a lot of the Einsteinian Planck physics and all this stuff where we have to keep putting band-aids on the theories and stitching them together in weird ways to make it work instead of just coming up with a new unifying theory of everything. That's really, and the issue is because I think really it stems from the fact that we don't include spirit in all this stuff. I mean, I have guys, it's kind of creepy. I have friends, and I'd never linked on this, so I don't care about like talking about this, but like I have friends who are like hardcore atheists who work at very like they because I played World of Warcraft, so I know people all over, and they work at very so one of them works at Eli Lilly, I believe is what it is, the pharmaceutical company. He works there, and oh my goodness, dude, this guy is so atheist, it's not even funny. And like, you can't even talk to him about COVID, about the vaccines, about anything, and because he works there. And this is what they do: they sit around all day testing their theorems and theories out, and like their arguments out against people who believe in God. And there's a seething energy behind it, because I'm able to talk to anyone, so I can still talk to these people. And I used to be an atheist, so it's like, okay, I get it. But like, these people hate spiritual people, dude. They think that we are so backwards and so stupid, and how could we ever believe in that? First of all, also, that's just a pathetic existence to live, where you just think you die and it's all over. Trust me, because I've lived that existence. But no, like, it's I'm getting off on a side tangent. Let me keep going. But like this is, it's going to be very difficult for these people when it's undeniable what God is. So I think I can connect that to kind of where we started all of this, of the new thing that comes forward too. So it may not even be aliens. It could just be something like that where it's undeniable that God exists, and these people are going to be shaken to their core because they can't even accept it. You try to talk to them about it, you try to give them peer reviewed, it doesn't matter. It can be peer reviewed, and they're like, oh, well, that's not good enough. We've all heard about that, and we have this cope about that one. So heliocentric rupture, AI extending sight into pattern, scale language beyond human perception. And that's the thing, is that's what's so great about AI, is it's going to be able to see things beyond our perception, beyond even the perception of our tools, by just running hypotheticals and all the simulations that it can run, which you could argue, are we in a simulation being run by AI? There's the whole idea of is the universe a simulation? And I think on, like, if you're going to make that argument, it's like, okay, well, this gets into the Steiner work. It's a spiritual simulation, and more like, because if you're going to say it's a simulation, you can fall into some pretty extreme nihilism in that. And it's also essentially a glorified version of Gnosticism, which I'm not like I believe in gnosis, but I don't believe in being a pure Gnostic. I think it gets kind of dark when you think that the God of this universe abandoned us and we're left here on the playground of Satan, and like really we should worship Satan because like that is how we get things in this world, and like, where is God? That kind of thing. It's a little bit much for me. Galileo affair, COVID, climate, evolution, gender, whose authority adjudicates, excuse me, I thought it was like abdicate, adjudicates what is real. And that's the thing we're seeing here, is like that pushing down of the authority. It's the same theme we saw during the Lutheran time, is the theme that we're seeing during the Galilean time. Sorry, I was just checking out chat. Yeah, but that same theme we're seeing come back again, where it's like, okay, like, you guys no longer have the authority. So I think this is finally the rotation where we see the scientists aren't going to have the authority, and people like us are actually going to have a lot more authority, and they're not going to be listening to the experts. They're going to be like, okay, well, what's the spiritual side of this? Because that will be essentially science and spirituality merging under this transit. I think that's really, really beautiful. And the vernacular Bible, and this gets into what we were saying, the AI you can have AI translate scripture. I even think of AI going back at the Hitler speeches and translating them into German. I like that. That's like hilarious. But even just AI with coding, all that stuff. And I use AI to code because I have to code my own personal AI. So I have to like put the code through it. And I know Python, I know C++, I know Java. I learned these when I was younger, but it's like I haven't used them in years, so it's helpful. And then, yeah, we pulled up. I wish I had grabbed the gunpowder plot chart, and the James Webb Space Telescope launch. I know that's an interesting chart, but like I said, I didn't want to have too many to pull up. And now, finally, guys, we're at Salem. I'm so sorry. I know I was teasing you, but we're finally at Salem. Okay. And we can get the Salem chart ready. Yeah, because we only got like a couple more. It's Salem, and then we close. And the Revolution, and we close out. The eschatological project meets its mirror. So this is where we finally have that continuation where the Puritans come and found, and you get those seeds of that happening from the last Uranus cycle. Now we go into the next Uranus cycle, and this is the Salem witch trials. So Puritans in New England for 70 years, founded as literal eschatological project, the New Jerusalem on the Hill. By 1989, the founding generation is dead. Wow. Political instability. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a tumultuous time for sure. I'm just trying to think of parallels to current times right now with that specifically. But obviously, there's the New Jerusalem eschatology. There's that New Jerusalem again coming up. And so this is kind of where people get it from. If you've ever seen all the clickbait videos where they're like, America is like actually the New Jerusalem. This is like more what they mean, and New Jerusalem is more of an idea, if anything. So, but that's kind of what they mean when they're talking about like America's the New Jerusalem. And then and usually they always usually put it somewhere on the East Coast. It's usually tied in with the I guess you can call it Tartarian stuff. I think there's a great deal of Tartarian stuff that's a psyop, but I do believe in some semblance of Tartarian. I think the star forts are very compelling. I think there's a lot of stuff that's compelling with Tartaria. But it's kind of become this dirty. It's such a If you really think about it, it's become this huge divisive thing to talk about Tartaria. People are either like way too into it and will accept anything Tartarian, or they're like, that's bullshit. The whole thing's bullshit. And I'm like, it's like with anything, like somewhere in the middle is probably more what's right. Political instability, though, yep. Economic strain, frontier wars with Native Americans. Yeah. A creeping sense that the Millennial Project is failing. Into this anxiety, Uranus enters Gemini. And so we're seeing the political instability, the economic strain. We're not seeing frontier wars. However, that could be something that comes up later in the cycle if we end up taking to space. Because here, let me actually because this is something I want to say. Because really, when we're dealing with what is about to come up in space, whether it's a UFO psyop or a fake alien invasion or this or that, and I lean towards the fake alien invasion, and this is why what I was going to get into with the whole idea of, say, someone like Catherine Austin Fitz's work, who used to work in housing and urban development under the Bush administration. She talks about and follows the money on, I mean, it's a lot of money, guys. We know about the missing trillion that happened before 9/11, but it's like, it's essentially getting into, over the time, like 1 point something quadrillion. There's like so much, because there's just the money that's from our government that gets siphoned off of it through the defense budget, through this, through that, the $2,000 like toilet seats type of thing, like where they fudge the numbers on that. So there's the money that gets siphoned through there, but we don't realize quite how much the CIA, which we know, and this is on record, is involved with the drug trade, how much they make off of that, and this is something the elites have always done. Is they run some type of, they got the drug trade, human trafficking operation, that's like going underground. Because obviously at some point this was like more of like the slave trade type of thing, and not even just the slave trade that we all know about, but just slave trades in general. But they always have these funding mechanisms that funnel massive amounts of money into what they're doing behind the scenes. And this is a video I'll eventually be doing. This gets into Neptune and Aries in the Civil War. And there's a lot to be said there. I won't even go down that track, because what I'm trying to get into when it has to do with aliens and these new frontiers is, I really think that what we're going to see is there's been a whole entire infrastructure that's been constructed in space, and there will be humans that start to be allowed to be able to use this infrastructure, perhaps if you like are deciding to go to war with the fake alien invasion. There's like so many of these different possibilities. Uranus is involved, so obviously it can go so many different ways, and it comes fast, it's disruptive, and it's like something you wouldn't have expected. But that is something through following the money and going into her work. Catherine Austin Fitz, another person, Daniel List, dark journalist, he frequents Alex Jones a lot, but he's a Taurus, and he's very into documenting his work, finding things that are verifiable and true, and he throws everything else out the window. And he's like, no, I just don't want to deal with that. That's why he didn't really like fuck with David Wilcock. He didn't hate him or like, but he was just like, dude, like you kind of need more proof to be able to make these kind of claims. And on some level I agree with him. But anyway, there has been an entire infrastructure that has been constructed, whether you want to say it's in Earth orbit, in our solar system, whatever, and that at some point is being given to humanity. It can be under false pretenses, but that's something we need to understand when it gets into frontier wars. So I think we're going to take to the stars very fast and out of nowhere. People think we have to build this stuff up. No, we've had technology since the 40s. We've had all this stuff being built out. We've had brain drains that constantly happen. Who knows if even now these missing scientists are a brain drain. But people, when I say brain drain, people at the highest echelons who actually just get taken off planet, who just vanish, disappear. Whether it's like they go into and they have these people also, the ones in the 70s and 80s, and 60s, like it's all the same thing where they just they leave with like stuff that they would typically have like with them. They leave that at home and they just vanish. And I think that they get sold somewhere like it can be somewhere on Mars, it can be somewhere on the moon and like secret bases there and all that. I think that this stuff is kind of really the only way that they could release this to the public is by a fake alien invasion. Be like, hey guys, sorry we didn't tell you about that. Our bad, but we actually have constructed this because we kind of thought this was coming and we didn't want to scare anyone, but they're here now. Like, so hate to go on that tangent, but that's kind of where the new frontier wars. That's what I think of when I see that. And okay. Oh, okay. There we go. The intellectual rupture in England. Okay, we're chugging along, guys. Sorry, we're almost there. Oh, we're doing really well though. We're only at 2 hours. Okay. I always I like don't want to be that person who goes 3.5 hours. But even if it's someone like Robert Phoenix, I'll watch 3.5 hours. I'll watch 4 hours. I think he's even went 4 hours before. Glorious Revolution. Catholic King James II overthrown. Protestant William of Orange and Mary II take the throne. This is one of my favorite times in history, by the way. I'm a sucker for the monarchy and everything. So it's interesting to have that reminder that, oh, thank you so much, Sedona Angel. It's interesting to have that By the way, Sedona Angel, I was talking to my friend Liz Wolfenstein in the chat when I said Liz, because I don't think I've ever once called you Liz, and I don't ever plan to, because I know you go by Elizabeth, just so you know. Yeah, I love this period, though, of history, because you have this whole idea of Mary II coming in, and then there was there's, what is it, like the other queen, she was Bloody Mary, and then you had the other Queen Mary come in, but there was like this ousting in between, and this is in the aftermath of King Henry, and these are the two daughters, but one of them was a daughter through like Anne Boleyn, I believe, and the other was a daughter through like the actual marriage. So this is the first marriage that comes in, Bloody Mary, who was cutting off the people's head and all that stuff, and like kept it going, as I believe she was the she was the Protestant one, and then the Catholic one ended up being, I think, the other Mary that... Oh, no, I'm thinking, I mean, it's either that or Mary Queen of Scots, too. It could have been Mary Queen of Scots, because she was down in France during this time, trying to come back and take the kingdom. Because essentially, and if you ask me, it actually rightfully did belong to her, but she was also a part of this, too, because, yeah, that's what it was. So Queen Mary takes over, or Queen Elizabeth takes over, excuse me. Queen Elizabeth takes over. Mary, Queen of Scots, knows that she has a better claim to the throne of England than Queen Elizabeth. And then she goes up and makes a beachhead and starts to head in, but then is forced to... I think she was forced to retreat in some type of way, and then ends up being captured, and she lives out the rest of her life in like a tower. And then John Locke. I know wasn't he like a great... oh yeah, John Locke. They reference him in the Founding Fathers stuff, right? Yeah, they quote him and all that. So the two treatises of government and a letter concerning toleration, foundations of liberal political theory and religious freedom, the document the American founders will quote relentlessly 87 years later. And I would be interested to see in the last one, Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I'll have to look up more documents during the time of World War II that became foundational. I mean, you can view it as getting rid of a lot of stuff like NATO and all that, but this is more like leaning on a foundational document from that time. So we could probably see a foundational document from that time that'll come back, and it'll be quoted a lot for the new documents that we do to essentially get our freedoms back, and to update the Constitution for what is needed, or whatever ends up being the new form. It'll be with Uranus. You never really know. And I also would say that AI is totally ruled by Uranus. All right, Salem begins. Okay, sorry guys. So we had the accusations begin in the household of Reverend Samuel Paris. Spectral evidence. I don't know what Tituba is, but the Paris household. Tituba, an enslaved woman from the Caribbean, is the first accused. Oh, so it's a person. Okay. She confesses under duress and names others. The panic catalyzes. Spectral evidence admitted at trial. Testimony about someone's specter, spirit double, what someone's specter, spirit double did in dreams. Interesting. So I'll need to go through. I glanced at. This is actually the one part I didn't really glance at. I kind of just made sure like some dates were right and stuff, but I didn't really read the content of it. I just simply didn't have the time. I knew it would be good, and it would give me branches I could go off of, but I would say with this, what we're going to see, because I've always thought that we see a lot of spiritual abilities come online. One of my astrologers, a great astrologer, Robert Phoenix, was talking about prophetic dreams coming in. I don't want to take credit for that prediction or anything. I will take like some credit of crediting him with the prediction and it turning out in a way we didn't really expect it, because I've been getting served prophetic dreams that people recorded like up to 20 years ago. I've been getting it served through the algorithm. And it was mainly when we saw Venus being that attractive force, crossing Algol, which was the algorithm. In some ways, and then you also get the algorithm being like through Aquarius, through Uranus, that kind of stuff. Even like through, Pluto's in Aquarius, so. Because there's a Plutonian aspect to Algol too, so there's kind of this play off of it. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I think that we're going to have, though, as these spiritual abilities by people ramp up, I think that we're going to kind of have something similar to this, where people are getting around. And this goes into the whole idea of rounding people up that we talked about earlier in the stream. It's just this consistent thing. By May 1693, around 200 are accused, 30 convicted, 19 executed by hanging, 1 pressed to death. Several more die in prison. Probably from infection too, sadly. All right, we just went over the numbers. The one who was pressed to death, though, he refused to enter a plea, and his last words were, "More weight." Fucking based. I'm sorry, based. Like that's. I hope I can go out like that. Well, like obviously you don't want to go out like that, but if I'm gonna go out in some kind of way where I'm persecuted for my beliefs, especially because I have like a persecution complex, like I kind of love being persecuted for my beliefs. Please let it be that badass. Okay, key figures: Cotton Mather, Giles Corey, who we just talked about. Cotton Mather, he was the head dude. I think I've seen him in like some of the Salem TV show type things and stuff like that. I think he like always gets depicted, but wrote Wonders of the Invisible World, defending the trials, believed America was the prophesied site of Christ's return. There's the eschatology. There's the end times again. There is the hysteria, all of that. Enslaved woman in the Paris household. This is the Tituba lady from the Caribbean. First accused, confessed under duress. Testimony catalyzed the panic. And then the judge. One of the trial judges later publicly repented in 1697. Also wrote the first anti-slavery tract in America, The Selling of Joseph, in 1700. We'll see if that's relevant. Eschatological threads. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was explicitly millennial experiment. Winthrop's City Upon a Hill sermon framed New England as the eschatological vanguard. Cotton Mather, this is the guy who was persecuting everyone. Cotton Mather's Wonder of the Invisible World describes Salem as a literal frontier in a war between God and Satan. That's going to come back for sure. Unless, I mean, are we already seeing it? I can't really think of it right now. I mean, people are saying we're in a spiritual war for sure, but it's going to intensify. The accusations were not random hysteria to the participants, they were eschatological. Satan was making a last desperate assault on God's chosen people because the end times were near. I also, let me pull up the chart too. I haven't even pulled it up yet. When the trials collapsed in disgrace, 1693, the theocracy died with them. The eschatological orientation went underground and reemerged as American civil religion. Interesting. I'm going to read that one more time. The trials collapsed in disgrace. The theocracy died with them. The eschatological orientation went underground and reemerged as American civil religion. Fascinating. So they're saying our court systems and the way that you can think of our court systems essentially came about from this. Because this is before the American Revolution. That's fascinating. I never knew that. Wow. This is why you love AI, you know? Let's go to this chart. All right, Salem begins. As we see, we've got Uranus and Gemini right here. So this is the first trial. This is a couple months after the accusations began. I was like, I wasn't sure which chart I wanted to pull. All this, as you can guys see, I'm like a freaking like I'm like a Nazi about orbs. So I like turn these down 40%. Astro.com will be giving some wide ass orbs. I guys told you my orbs 3 degrees for normal planets, 5 degrees for luminaries, you know, especially if you're going to do mundane astrology, you don't need all that. You don't need all these like wide, like 7-8 degree orbs on like normal planets that aren't like between a Mercury and like a Pluto or something. Like I'm good on that. But anyway, I'm like just getting at that point in the stream. I'm getting a little like a little saucy here, but we got Uranus and Jupiter conjunct 4 and 6 degrees there of Gemini there. And so the Jupiter, I mean, that's really where you see that paranoia coming in right there, that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we had, we saw mass hysteria, mass paranoia. Like, wouldn't that have been during COVID? Correct me if I'm just doing a little math in my head. I'm pretty sure that was during COVID. So you got that. Good thing we're not going to see another conjunction. Well, I guess that will be in what? The next one would be in like, will it be 8 years? Because Jupiter's in Leo now. So I guess it would be 10 years. And it'll probably happen in Cancer. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I think that'll happen in Cancer. Or it's like 10, 11 years. But all this is at opposition with Saturn here. And then there we go again. This is the same as that chart that we looked at with Martin Luther, where all this stuff in Gemini is opposing the Saturn right there. So this is kind of where the religious stuff comes in. You got Pallas there, and it's an exact conjunction too. I forget off the top of my head. Oh, Pallas Athena. So this is like the aspect of you know the Athenian things. So this is like war, but this is war and more of the aspect in the planning of a war and everything. So the people who had the religious protections, who had the religious institutions and protections and backing behind them, like they were essentially getting hit hard by all of these placements, because you also have the Sun and Mercury and Chiron in there too, which just adds to that. Like, dude, people were probably going fucking nuts. Like, what the fuck, dude? I don't like that. I look at that chart, that scares me. People were fucking crazy. You thought COVID was bad? That was nothing compared to what was going on during this time. Holy shit. And then on top of that, with the moon, you got these moon's in Taurus, of course, but you got the moon in conjunction with the Pleiades right there, and then that's like separated from Algol, of course. But that's just like interesting, right there, the moon from. So it's like, I mean, this is just like a 1 day chart, but obviously this and for this chart, I have. This was in exact time, I believe, was it not? I guess I just had the date. I could have sworn I put in an actual time for this, because it's saying 12 p.m. but then the universal time, it's given like weird. I guess it's universal time. It's not. Okay, we'll take it. I swore I put in a real time for this though, but we're not looking at houses anyway. But yeah, that's just insane. And then like over here we've got this what is this to friggin' Venus. We got that sextile of Uranus and Jupiter over to Venus there in Leo. So it was like on top of all that was going on and the working of people against that, like the people in power, like getting hit with the craziness, like, oh, well, how can we clamp down on the power and all that? Then you've also got the South Node, the stuff they're supposed to be moving away from, but really they're leaning into because it gives them that comfort. That, and then with that attractive Venus force right there, those people are banding together. They're hunting down the witch. They're getting going crazy. Grab them, get them over here on the Saturn side, get them in jail, get them hunted down. You know, like use the religion for it. And then you've got Pluto here that's in Cancer right there. So it's like Pluto in the underworld that's ruled by the home too. And then you see that this starts out, the first accusation starts out from someone who was accused like in the home, who was like actually like a very, I mean, quite the, I guess you could say it's more of a Virgo thing, being the slave and everything, but it was in the home that it happened too. And then it's also important to note that we've got Sirius there, the dog star, and as America we worship Sirius, although America wasn't in play at that time, but just worth a mention. But yeah, there's that sextile, right? Yes, yeah, sextile right there. And I guess I don't know why it does these dots here, but I'm pretty sure that's a sextile too. I mean, I almost want to, because I remember I switched this thing and it ended up being a sextile. So I don't want to say it's like a semi-square or anything. It might be. But anyway, there's the aspect right there too, going to yeah, so it's so essentially all these planets are aspecting that Venus. Or would it be they're close together, so I think it's all hitting. Yeah, because there's the node. Okay. I guess I could always zoom in, but yeah, that's interesting. And then we're dealing with this is under the eclipse phase of Pisces. So the Pisces solar eclipse that we had. So that, I mean, need I say more? So all that delusion around spirit stuff, you know, like seeing stuff in the spirit that isn't there, with the Neptune in Pisces for that eclipse, all hard aspecting the placements that we have in Gemini, making people go more crazy. You know, we got these these squares going on, and yeah, I think I covered all the placements there for Salem. This is just the first time I even looked at it, guys. So I'm like holy shit! I'm kind of like going on a ride with you. All right, trial collapse. What the failure produced. The trial's collapse cleared the way for what comes next. A secularized millennial millennial nationalism. The United States as the New Jerusalem. Reagan invoked it. Obama invoked it. Trump invokes it. Wow. Okay. Let me read that again. A secularized millennial nationalism. The United States as the New Jerusalem. Reagan invoked it, Obama invoked it, Trump invokes it. That's very true. The Salem trials cleared the way for it by destroying the theocratic version that came before. Wow, okay. The Locke's framework and Puritan eschatology is the American operating system. It's still running today. That's very true. You can really see it. And then, I mean, I don't even think we've seen the worst of it either. I mean, what happens when we get this pile up in Gemini? You know what I mean? And I'm not even saying it's necessarily this year that we get such a pileup, because we gotta, if I'm just doing the astrology in my head, we're not gonna get the same type of pileup we got in Aries earlier this year. This year, that is, but we will eventually get it, because I think first we have to kind of deal with the the Venus and Mars retrograde, and then have stuff kind of start to come around and equal out, and then we can get more of a pileup as early as next year, but I need to look at the charts to be for sure. A secular, okay, okay, I already went through all this. Oh, excuse me. The modern echoes. So then we had the witch hunt rhetoric. Now we have the Trump's witch hunt. We also had the Me Too movement, cancel culture. So like it's more of like the archetype being alive because, and this gets into, of course, the themes that prop up during Uranus and Taurus too, and then it expands like once we move into Gemini. So like if you think the Trump witch hunt, the Me Too, and all that stuff was crazy, the cancel culture was crazy. It's literally nothing compared to what we're gonna see going forward now. And this started at 6 degrees of Uranus. Okay, so like by the end of the year, I think we get to well, my midheaven is 5. I think we get to 5 degrees and we retrograde. We might hit 6 degrees. I'm pretty sure it's 5 because Uranus is hitting my midheaven, and then it's gonna retrograde. It's gonna station directly on my midheaven and retrograde. Yeah, that'll be a fun one, right? um the spectral evidence deep fake. So yeah, so that then it was the spectral evidence, like, oh my gosh, like we're seeing this in the dream world, or like I'm seeing their dream form and all this. But now it's going to be deep fakes, viral exposure, mob justice, due process abandoned, because people have no faith in the courts anymore. So totally going to true. It's going to be mob justice. It's going to be a breakdown of stuff. And this is a big part about the energy that we're moving into as well, is there's going to be far less police presence, and as these systems break down. So it's going to be kind of more local communities coming together, creating some semblance of order, while there's still some police presence and all that, but they just won't be as available to us. Enough of a presence to where we can come together as communities, and especially like military presence too, but not enough where you can just call the police for every little thing, and they're gonna like show up. They'll show up like weeks later, you know. Spiritual warfare, Tucker on demonic possession, witch talk, the parallel evangelical revival. I think like those are all pretty cool points to make. Theocracy discredited, public health, courts, media discrediting themselves through politicized prosecutions. Well, prosecutions and persecutions, you can say. Oh yeah, sounds like Minneapolis. Oh my goodness. With is that with the witch hunt thing with Minneapolis? I guess I'm not there anymore, so I don't like. I know what I read, but I try not to listen too much to what I read. You know, because it's like I'll read something, and then I talk to people who are still living in Minnesota, because I'm from Minnesota, by the way, and then it ends up not really being close to reality. So I'm like, but I guess I'm just wondering what part you're talking about. Locke being read. Oh yeah, constitutional natural rights discourse rising in response to overreach from government overreach. So it's like I said, I feel like there's going to be some type of thing coming up about, all the communities. Yeah, Minnesota will be the best place for that. Really though, I mean, because I out here, it's not the same like as in Minnesota. It really isn't the same. People are just like, and maybe it's because we have more homeless people that we have more exposure to, like out in the suburbs here. But everyone is kind of like trying to like look away from each other, not saying hi in public and stuff. And maybe part of this is how the society is developing too. But because now that I'm in an actual home that's owned, I like to talk to my neighbors and stuff, and it's all cool and everything. But everyone, like up until now, like very much kept to themselves. People are not as nice, not as warm. Like they think I'm just the nicest guy ever. They're like, "Oh, you're so nice and stuff." Like, and it's like, no, I'm just from Minnesota, man. This is normal. I wouldn't say I'm like any more nice than most people from Minnesota, but yeah, coming together, lack of police. Oh yeah, you guys have had, yeah, you've definitely had that. Oh yeah, coming together, and like the lack of police for sure. It's like you guys learned already, and that's why I think you guys will be ahead too on a lot of stuff, like a lot of the Midwest states, but especially you guys, just because during COVID you guys were at the center of so much that was going on, because I mean that's like where it kicked off, and that's what it came out of. And one day I'd love to go over. My astrologer went over the astrology of Minnesota and like COVID and George Floyd and like all of these things and how it expanded out and became this thing. And it's funny, I love that you brought it up too, because this kind of gets into, if we go back to the like the chart here, this was I believe this was the last time we were dealing with this kind of Gemini pileup where people went like crazy, you know what I mean? Like and it was like, oh my God. And I'm not even saying on one side or the other. Like we saw insane shit during that time, during COVID, during the like the George Floyd protests and all that. And yeah, that but you guys have already dealt with that. So it's almost like you would be, no coincidence, Minnesota is the home of Twin Cities. Oh my God, thank you so much, Sedona. And there's the twin part of Gemini. Holy shit. That's crazy. Yeah, I think because you, that was probably like your initiation, was during COVID, was your initiation for the things that are coming, where you guys can really take the lead in Minnesota for a lot of stuff. That's yeah. Oh my, I'm excited for to see what comes out of Minnesota, because yeah, you guys have already gotten into this very Aquarian mode where you came together as community, so it's nothing new for you to do. And we saw that on some level here in Vegas with the Vegas shooting, but I wouldn't say it's the same type of thing, you know? Okay, we went through that. Salem. Okay, and we just had the one Salem chart. Then we got the American Revolution. Very light on the American Revolution, guys. I'll look like at the America chart essentially, or no, the Boston Tea Party. We're just gonna look at the Boston Tea Party, go over the stuff. I'll kind of skip some slides. You guys know a lot more about this. We know a lot more about the American Revolution, but Boston Tea Party, pure Uranian rupture, theatrical and ideologically charged. And then Boston Tea Party. Yeah, let's see here. And then, so this is when it's still, so Uranus still in Taurus there, but it's conjunct with Algol, which we mentioned earlier, that Algol thing. And then it's also conjunct with the Pleiades. So it's like we're moving away from, off with his head, and towards, this place, this very Pleiadian type place of like taking our own power, that kind of, there, like if you just think of the Pleiadian themes, like that's really like the ideals is a better word, the ideals, moving towards that. So that's just when you're looking at the Uranus placement. And we've got a grand Earth trine too, which is very nice. So that grand Earth trine, going to Saturn and Pluto there between Uranus and Taurus there. And then with that there, it's 25. I guess I'll take the orb. I guess I'll take it. It's 4 degrees. It's looser, but I would almost argue that it's like right when the trine breaks, like it disrupts everything that's been held in place. That really, and then look at this like service stuff too. It's like the illusion. Yeah, let's say the trine breaks right there. The illusion is shattered during. I guess let me catch up on chat here. Oh yeah, 9/11. Yeah, that's another example. Yeah, you got these like states that where the whole state was forced to come together in some type of way that I think will excel during this time of essentially political strife. Because in the midst of all of this too, there is internal. The astrology of the Civil War is coming back. That's that Neptune and Aries, and you can say Uranus and Gemini too. So the things that weren't resolved in the Civil War, they're gonna come back, and sure, race will be a part of it, but then there's even a banking part of it. There's a suppressed technology part of it. There's a lot of these things that ideologically were never solved. They were brushed under the rug during the Civil War, and they're gonna come back. But I think what I meant to say is like a lot of states that are used to coming together will have a lot easier time than other states. So yeah, we got the Pluto in Capricorn there, and then the Neptune in Virgo there. And what this says to me is like once this trine broke and it got disrupted essentially. Oh gosh, my eye's a little itchy. I have like an eye sty right now, so it's like I've been like taking medicine for it. I'm like, oh, that's like lovely. I see that as like this illusion breaking around the service that we're giving. Virgo is that service energy right there. And it was like we were essentially being taxed to all hell, working our asses off, sending everything back to England. And then that's like where the Pluto comes in. And even like you've got all these planets here in Capricorn here. And it's just like, why? And then it's interesting too, because this is an actual timed chart. And so you've got Capricorn in the sixth house of Virgo. So it's like, why are there's this play off of like the structures, the authorities, all that. Why are we continually working for the authorities, sending everything back there? Where's Venus at? Because that would be like the stuff. Yeah, like Venus in Aquarius conjunct the moon, like, and Juno. Like, this is our fucking product. Like, why are we doing this? And then Jupiter there. If we're really gonna look at Juno there, and then tie that over to Jupiter a little bit, give it that little connector, and it's in opposition to that too. So like it finally became too much. It moved over into Aries. It had just like moved into Aries there, and it was like, nope, we're done. Like, let's take to this. And then it's also conjoined with that Chiron, that wounded healer too. So it like started to amplify that internal damage that was felt by all the colonists. Oh yeah, have a good night, Sydney. Thanks for sticking around this long. And then we've got the North Node in Libra too. It's another North Node in Libra there. And that North Node, we've got that really having to deal with like, nope, we're going to break the agreement just because of these hard aspects you're getting. You're getting these hard aspects like would that be a technical like T-square? But yeah, you got these hard aspects. Like, I mean, I kind of guess. I don't know. Like, Anyway, well, there was one more thing I was looking at. Oh yeah, this Mars aspecting. Is it Mars? Well, Mars and Mercury are right on top of each other. So Mars and Mercury square onto the Chiron there, which is conjoined with that. I mean, it's even in a loose orb to Jupiter as well. So, and then South Node in Pisces there too. So just like we got to get away from all this stuff from, because there's a lot of lies surrounding that. But that's interesting. We'll kind of cycle through really quick. Oh wait, that's wrong. Okay, we'll cycle through here really quick. You guys know the people, Thomas Jefferson. One thing with Benjamin Franklin though, which is interesting, and his role in all this, I would say, is because Benjamin Franklin, it's totally Uranian, in the sense that Benjamin Franklin is the guy who like discovered, or like learned, he tamed electricity or lightning. And that's what Uranus rules, is lightning and electricity. So I find that to be really interesting, a cool transit that comes along with it. And then also Thomas Jefferson, that very much is like Aquarian, Uranian, because that deals with like power to the people. It's very Pluto and Aquarius. So, but then there's the Uranus aspect being the ruling planet. So. And then New Order of the Ages, or Novus Ordo Seclorum. This is the eschatology that came about. This is what's been continued from the last cycle. The ministers of the Great Awakening, the 1730s and 40s, had primed the colonies with the sense of divine destiny, and then the manifest destiny. Remember I was talking about that, how that comes back up and how that carries over from the last cycle, that is. Many Americans understood, and that's like the New Jerusalem stuff and all that. Which was in the Salem stuff, and then it was in the cycle before that. So you see that carry over. Many Americans understood the revolution as the establishment of the millennial kingdom. The eye in the triangle, the unfinished pyramid, Masonic eschatological symbolism, still on the dollar bill. And so this is where it'll get interesting, because we're going to get into Pluto, but I'm tying Pluto to not only Masonic, because when you get into Masonic stuff, you're getting into Kabbalah. And I won't give away too much, but you're getting into Kabbalah with Pluto stuff. And then Kabbalah, of course, would be Judaism. So the Judaism eschatology would be very Plutonian, and that's the mechanism through which it works. And so to see a convergence back then, during the founding of our nation, of the Christian and the Pluto or Jewish eschatology, it's foundational to our nation. And we saw earlier in this where those seeds were planted, how that converges in the founding of our nation. It's all going to come revisited in a Uranus return and a Pluto return. And this is why all these themes are coming up around Judaism, around the state of Israel. Israel's our greatest ally and all that stuff. It literally is in the astrology right there. And this is something I know other no other astrologers are talking about this because half of them are too scared. They're too scared to talk about it, you know, or they don't have the time or whatever it is. But it's like, no, like this is really where that's at. Like this convergence has to deal with, and really we can't see too much more of this either. Like it can only go on for 8 years maximum. I don't even think it will go on that long. But once we see the separating of the ingress essentially of Uranus into Cancer, then it can no longer be. There's got to be this separation between the Jewish Masonic eschatology that deals with those end times and the eschatology that's going to be dealing with what would it be, like a Christianity and America and all that stuff, that with the people who are in charge in America right now. But that's the big point that like really I want to make. And let me like back up a little bit here, and I'm just gonna like switch to the webcam and repeat it. So because I just want, you know, I've got to be able to clip this. But like, so when we're looking at the two eschatologies, we're looking at Plutonian eschatology, which is Judaism, Kabbalah, Masonry, and Albert Pike, and all of that stuff that comes in during this time period, by the way. And then we're looking at the Uranian eschatology, which would be evangelicalism, Christianity, Protestantism, Calvinism, Lutheranism, all of this stuff that we, of course, covered earlier. That stuff, there is a convergence happening as these planets come to the same place as they were during the founding event, during the Protestant Reformation, during all of these events that we've gone over. All of a sudden there is this convergence between these two, and Neptune is going to be a part of this too, but we'll just focus on these two for now. There's a convergence that's happening with these, and this is why we see all of these stuff coming up with Judaism. Israel's our greatest ally, and with the end times being pushed by the people in charge, Pete Hegseth, going up, blowing everything up. Let's bring about the return of Christ. And then on the flip side, with the Masonry people that are allowing all this Jewish hatred to come out, you know, they're essentially amping up the anti-Semitism that's to fulfill that eschatology, which is to bring all of the Jews back to the homeland because the anti-Semitism gets so bad, and that's how they bring about their end times. And these eschatologies are actually incompatible with each other. America is the only one that makes these eschatologies compatible with one another by some weird schizophrenic cognitive dissonance. I don't get it, but you know, that is really the biggest part of this part right here that needs to be discussed. And but let's get back to this here. The eye and the triangle. Oh yeah, I think I went over everything here. The American project is theological and secular at the same time. I don't think, maybe I didn't read this because it sounds new, but this is kind of what I just said. Theological and secular at the same time, and that productive contradiction is what gives American civil religion its particular intensity. Yeah, did I not just like essentially word that in a different way? I mean, truly. There we go. Okay, and then Uranus. Okay, so I've got another chart here. Uranus was discovered, modern echoes, and then so the modern echoes, information warfare. That we had the pamphlets come back. Yeah. Look at that, pamphlets come back. Let me scoot in. Pamphlets come back, and just like we were talking about this was going on during the Salem time too, but then also during the Protestant Reformation. All those pamphlets coming back. So talk of secession, civil war, constitutional convention rising on both left and right. Trump as either Washington or Caesar. This is crazy. So all this stuff coming back around. Trump is either Washington or Caesar. This debate is an active Uranus and Gemini cultural argument right now. And then that chart that we've got. William. So this is what I mentioned earlier in the stream. William Herschel, Uranus discovery. So apparently he's the guy who discovered Uranus. Apparently, but I don't know. I just look at this chart and it's like not really. I don't know if it's like the chart I would expect to see from someone who discovered Uranus. Like I would almost think. Where is it? The discovery of Jupiter's moon chart. Jupiter's moons seems like a much more I want to think that Galileo discovered it and he just kept it under wraps and kept it as like an esoteric secret, just looking at the charts like that. But you know, but William Herschel, Uranus discovery. So just a quick one. You got that square to the sun. I really can't dive too deep on this chart because I got to start to wrap it up and get to like really the themes, and I haven't even hit World War II. But here's another chart here. This is the guy who seeds Zionism. This is something I kind of want to go deeper into. So this is happening during Leo, but we've got these placements here that fall into America's Cancer placements. We've got Uranus and Gemini. So this is during that period of, this is during the following after the Revolutionary War. So let me like stay all on one track here. Okay, pattern doubles down. So Civil War. Only thing I wanted to bring up in the Civil War was this whole thing. Yeah, there's some cool stuff we can go into, but really the only thing I want to bring up is the guy that the Christian Zionism's prerequisite, the regathering of Jews to the Holy Land, is achieved during this transit. The eschatological clock starts ticking, and then so this happens under Uranus and Gemini, and then where is Pluto and Taurus. Okay, interesting. So and then it's also, so it'd be in square. So it started squaring where it was at in the Revolution there. I think, I don't know exactly the degree, but at some point. But this guy arrives. This is the date I gave is when this John Darby guy, who wrote essentially all the tenets of what we now consider to be modern day Zionism. This is when he arrived in Toronto, Canada, as a missionary and started preaching essentially the type of Christianity that would lead to modern day Christian Zionism. So this is a chart we can definitely revisit, but I mean, I find this chart to be interesting too. Solar eclipse in Cancer, and we know how heavy, we know America's a Cancerian nation, and then the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, and we've seen all these major Sagittarian placements and all these charts that we've looked at, and I think the reason is because they're going to be involved in oppositions to Uranus, and then we do have the opposition between the lunar eclipse and that. So that's that lunar eclipse like really brought him in, and I don't know when that actually was. That lunar eclipse was it actually just came like 2 months prior to this. Yeah, 2 months prior they just had that lunar eclipse. So interesting. And then you got the north and south node there as well. So definitely strikes me as that chart. And then we'd have to look and go see like what seeds were planted in Aquarius and stuff like that, what carried over and tacked itself onto Pluto, because I'm telling you, Pluto is going to be involved in that in some way. But yeah, we see that. So, and then we got the State of Israel chart. You guys have seen that chart. Not everyone, but like there's a lot of places you can go for that chart. Like I'm going to cut down on time and not do that because we still have World War II. The most consequential chart in the entire eschatological convergence. It is actually the Israel chart, but we just really can't get into it now. It's heavy Gemini stuff. I mean, I might have it open over here. I don't know. It's right here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, heavy Gemini. I mean, Uranus Gemini, Mercury Gemini. We've got a grand trine here. Or that's not a grand trine, excuse me. Because those are sextiles. But you got like this trine at least that's going on over to Neptune. Neptune in Libra. No Aries placements. Iran has those Aries placements though. And then Iran, this is where we get into what's tying to the Islamic eschatology, which would be Neptunian. And Iran has all that, not only Neptune stuff, Piscean stuff, but also the Aries stuff. So that's fascinating. And we'll get into that. We've also got, what is it? It's not, I wouldn't really conjunct that. But we do have Moon and Pluto and Saturn in Leo there. So this is kind of where don't hit their ego, because they just like lose their fucking mind when you hit their ego and everything. Like, Jesus Christ, Israel. Like, they're crazy. And it's in the 10th house. So it's like if they ever appear to be weak, you just see like what they do. And this comes into hard aspect with with like what is this with the solar the natal solar eclipse that they have there, which was in Taurus, unmoving, refusing to change, and also with the North Node that they have, which just really amplifies that energy, or like which one, it's a chicken or the egg, which one amplifies the other. And then we've got that Chiron in Scorpio at a complete opposition with the Sun. I mean, that's like so. I mean, we might even see this event coming soon, but and then you got the lunar eclipse in Scorpio too that they had. I mean, that's something locked in there. There's a lot about Israel we just don't know. And when that stuff comes out, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be violent. It's going to be really violent. This gets into the Samson option with how they'll just like launch nukes everywhere if they feel like their nation is threatened. You can see the Samson option totally in this chart. Oh my goodness. But yeah, we did have the founding of Israel during World War II. And okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, so this was all kind of in one thing. But yeah, U.S. enters World War II, 1941, 1945, atomic bomb, Hiroshima. And then also what's interesting about 1945 is, I believe it's 1945, is the Roswell event. 1947, UN partition plan for Palestine. State of Israel proclaimed in 1948. And then, of course, this is the continuation of the prior cycle during the Civil War where that guy seeded Christian Zionism. So the guy came as a missionary in the last Uranus-Gemini cycle and seeded the Zionism. And then because of that, and this is the guy who gets referenced in all of these books when they proclaimed and founded and did all the papers during this time period, the World War II time period, for the State of Israel, then that's really what you see. You just see that continuation. Guy goes in the last Uranus-Gemini cycle, okay? Dispensationalizes all of that. The idea of Christian Zionism, it festers, and I'm sorry to use the word festers, but that's just how I feel about it. It festers for another Uranus cycle, and it unlocks during the next one, which is our last Uranus cycle during World War II, and that's where we get the founding of the State of Israel, And so what are we going to see from the founding of the State of Israel? What's that going to come into now that we're in another? I personally think, and people are not going to like this, I personally think that we're going to get, and this is something that Professor Zhang talks about too, but it's so in line with the astrology. And I think what we're going to end up seeing is a type of Pax Judaica, okay, where Israel rises as a new global superpower and breaks away. Because if you think about it, it would be the same thing that happens historically with everyone that ends up being the attack dog of another nation, like Sparta was for Athens or something. Then they came back around, took it over, and then they became the new power. It became like kind of the whole Roman Empire and all that stuff that happened. So I think we're going to see something very similar. It looks like it's in the astrology. We've pulled up a lot of charts tonight and everything, but we get a rise of Pax Judaica that comes about as the resolution for the founding of the State of Israel. This is why you see they want the entire Middle East, so they will get a huge chunk of the Middle East. They want Iran to be under that too. And whichever way this plays out, they rise as a new world superpower. They have a lot of trade going through there, and then they're able to recall a lot of Jews back to Israel and fulfill their Jewish eschatology that they want, which requires Jewish people to return to the homeland. And then it requires a lot of stuff, and a lot of the stuff we are seeing that they're doing. But that's what I think is like this whole idea of Pax Judaica, them rising as a new superpower because they just control our entire government. I think they're really milking it dry, because when you look at what we're seeing, it looks like the country is under an auction. It looks like we're being auctioned off, quite literally, and they're squeezing us dry for everything they can before it falls. So that's but I have hope. I have hope for the way that we can come together and what we can do, and curveballs that Uranus can throw us, because it is the disruptor. It is for the people. Ultimately, whatever happens with Uranus, it's for the people. So, but that's just very important to know in terms of that coming back around. And we're about ready to, Mao's victory of China, not really worth mentioning now. Christian Zionism's prerequisite. Gathering the regathering of Jews to the Holy Land is achieved during this transit. The eschatological clock starts ticking. So that's one regathering, but it's a little bit different. They're talking about the worldwide diaspora coming back and being forced back under an AI surveillance state too, which will offer a lot of benefits. They'll be a very rich nation under this whole model of Pax Judaica. We'll have to go over that sometime for another stream. Pax Judaica. And then now, Uranus returns to Gemini. So we got that. I gave the dates and everything. You guys kind of know. We're in it now. So, and it leaves in 2033, right? Oh, 2032. Final exit. Pattern tells us to watch for a communication technology rupture. So we'll see how that. It could be like a mass information blackout or something like that. Like a communications blackout is the technical term. Mass disruption of religious authoritative institutions. We've thoroughly went over that tonight. A founding document for a new institutional order. And that's the thing is, as these institutions fall, like that's where it becomes important for us as the people to come together, so we are able to make a proper founding document and not have AI make that founding document for us. We cannot have AI make it for us. So we need to really, maybe refine it or something. I don't know. But like, it can't be like AI, like make us a new civilization to live in. It's like, I don't know, man. The founding fathers seem to do just fine. And it was only because we didn't fulfill our end of the bargain that it hasn't worked out in recent years. That's our fault. We were given so much freedom and got so lazy with fucking boomers, man, and got so lazy with it that it's just like that's what happens. A schism event, the twins separates. We went over that too. Civil conflict on home soil for major nations. The U.S. has been hit on every Uranus and Gemini since its founding, and we do get hit. But you know who gets hit worse during Uranus and Gemini? Europe. Europe's freaking over, dude. Like you're gonna see a lot of people die in Europe. A lot of people. Every Uranus and Gemini, Europe goes through it. They go through it. So many people die. Wars driven by ideological, eschatological narrative rather than purely material interest. That's exactly what we're saying. We have no material interest to be there. Other than the oil. But it's like, okay, well, we took the Venezuelan oil, so are we good now? No, well, we still need to be there. Like, they're good. It's going to be excuse after excuse, and that's just what we've already seen. We're losing interest in being there. I won't turn this into like some major political stream right now because I could like keep going, but AI as the new. So this is what's already happening. AI as the new printing press. ChatGPT public release. That was, of course, and this is where that little minor seeding comes right before it in Uranus and Taurus that we talk about. So public release November 2022. Mass deployment phases now, though. This is where we're really seeing it unlock, because even though a lot of us in this space, anyone watching this, like uses AI, most people don't really use it a lot, or they don't have it downloaded or use it at all. Especially like if you're over 40, like a lot of people over 40 actually aren't using it, or they were told how to use it. They use the free version of ChatGPT and they use it like essentially just to Google some things, but they're not really using the capabilities of it. But you're going to see people like mass adopt the actual real capabilities of it. And it's going to be very important to like try to have the know-how to at least get one that's sequestered away on your computer system. So when these kind of things go down, you have access to it, because there's the cross of planning and human design, like I said, going away. So we are leaning a lot more on that. Religious, first American Pope, institutional Catholicism repositioning during the ingress. So that's going to be a big part of it. Religious revival on the right. Evangelical resurgence framing geopolitics in apocalyptic terms. And then religious revival on the left. The rise of explicit witchcraft and occult identification on TikTok and Instagram. And so that's an interesting thing too, because I obviously knew about that, but making that connection to the left, it makes sense actually, because that is something you see much more on the left. Elon Musk's X and the splintering of legacy media. Yeah, literal Reformation analog. Iran war, unfolding now with explicitly eschatological framing on multiple sides. Yeah, and this is what I am calling what is it? The Trinity of Convergence. It's the three planets, each representing one eschatology, coming together right now, and it's going to create a new world. We're in a new world, and you can feel it, but you don't see it in the material yet. But it is going to be coming to the material, and it's going to be very disruptive. It's going to be very violent. And these are the things that people aren't ready for. They can sit and they can scroll through TikTok and get these little tidbits of things ultimately. But once this world is forever changed and people realize that we aren't going back, that's kind of when they're going to have to tune in, maybe devote an hour or two of their time and figure out, why is this happening astrologically? Why is this happening eschatologically? Because people are going to be at a loss. That's not really going to be the type of thing you can ask AI. Look who controls AI. You think that that's going to give you answers? You think it's going to make you feel whole? And that, obviously, I'm not talking to anyone who's listening right now, but this will be clipped up. Israel under existential pressure during its first complete Uranus return. Yes, Uranus return, Israel's under it. Donald Trump is under it. America's under it. It's not the first Uranus return, but it's Israel and Trump's first Uranus return. And really, you only get one per life. But if you're lucky enough to live that long, 84 cycle predictions of civil conflicts, secession discussions, constitutional crisis discourse, the information war at peak intensity, deepfakes, AI agents, weaponized narrative, a loss of faith in legacy authoritative institutions across the political spectrum. Yep, and then we've got these echoes that we pulled forward, and we went over these, but we're just reviewing everything for the end of the stream. Sicilian expedition rhyming with U.S. foreign overreach, plague during war, sophist rhetoric in social media, and so it's the same thing where it's become this town square social media and this back and forth of logic and out-logicking one another. The Reformation period, that echo that of Uranus and Gemini, that is now revisiting us, is a new vernacularization of the truth via the internet. There's a schism of these unified institutions. There's a new pope, and there's, of course, the idea of pamphlet wars with Martin Luther, with the Salem witch trials, with the founding of our nation, where these pamphlet wars happen. And that's the thing, is we're just seeing it through social media, but to make no mistake, this is another pamphlet war, where the ideologies are battling each other out, and ultimately one is going to win out, and that ideology that ends up winning out is going to be laying the new founding documents, just like there were founding documents that were laid after World War II that have to do with more of a world and America becoming a global superpower. And this gets into, the whole idea of the banking system that was set up, all of that, This is like what we're going to see again, is in the aftermath of all of this destruction that comes, chaos, disruption, and there will be some beautiful things that come out the other end, but that's going to be the whole thing, a new founding document with that. And then in terms of the Galileo period, those parallels we're seeing now, that's the James Webb Space Telescope. That's AI extending sight beyond our perception and being able to really understand the nature of reality, either through that or running tests, running simulations. UAP disclosure, we see that, sometime this summer, it's looking like they're getting ready to drop something on us. It could be even as early as this month, May, which is still spring. But it is leading up to this Mars-Uranus conjunction we have on July 3rd, and then July 4th, that's the 250th year anniversary of America. On July 4th this year, when we're in a Pluto return in Aquarius, which is that every 250 years, Pluto returns to the same point it was at. So we're now in a Pluto return in the same spot where Pluto was at during the time of our founding of America, Uranus and Gemini, in the same place where Uranus was at in the founding of America. Now, it's made several cycles, but this is the first cycle it's going to be back in the same place as it was in when we founded this nation, when Pluto was also in Aquarius. So we have both of these together now. And so all of these things really coming together here, very important to note, and it will create an entirely different world. All right, and then where we go from here. Word ruptures its container, technology of communication leaps forward, institution splinter, a new founding document emerges from the wreckage. So, I mean, this is essentially what I was saying. I haven't even seen this screen before, but, you know, this is what I was saying as I was going over all of that. And it's the thing to look out for. It's nothing to be scared of. It's just understanding if you've been clinging on to a certain way of life and you aren't ready to roll with the punches and change, it's going to be very difficult. And it's the hard talk that every astrologer has to have with their clients. It's going to be really difficult if you aren't willing to change, if you're super married to your job. There has been something. There's been, for everyone, there's been something in the last 3 to 6 months that you went through where the universe was screaming at you, hey, like, stop doing this thing. This is not for you anymore. We need a readjustment. We need a pivot in this type of way. And you either did the thing and your life is starting to look a lot different than it did a year ago, really more than even than 6 months ago, or you're doubling down and tripling down. And it's going to be so difficult by the time you get through this summer when all of these aspects hit, especially these ones in Leo, especially when that Mars-Uranus conjunction comes, especially when we get towards the end of the year and we have these eclipses. That's the kind of thing you need to be ready for. So if the universe has been screaming at you, hey, I need change. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't be at this 9 to 5 anymore. I can't be in this relationship anymore. Oh, what happens if I'm not in a relationship anymore? What am I going to do? Oh my goodness, that scares me. Well, it's the time to make that leap and jump into what's going to be scary, because it will become infinitely more scary if you wait until the universe forces it. And you know whatever that thing is for you. All right, and then this isn't the end, isn't it? I think it's like, I mean, I'm kind of hoping, because it's like I'm about ready to eat, honestly. But right now, for the first time in centuries, 3 outer planets have all changed. Okay. Yep, and then this is what's next. So you guys know I'll go over Pluto. This has to do with empire. Really has to do more with Israel, Judaism, that kind of stuff. So that'll be the next one. But the reason empire falls into that, which is so funny, it ends up being Pax Judaica, how I think they will rise as the new global superpower. And then Neptune, the vision, planet that turns wars into spiritual events and gives the Iranian story its terrifying coherence. So that's where the Islam comes in. So we'll cover those. I should be able... Oh, Wheel of Fortune versus the Tower card. Yeah, really, though. Wow. I've gotten Wheel of Fortune. I always get the Tower because I'm a Taurus and it's like difficult for me to change. So if I'm saying it, it's like, okay, like, come on, people, time to change, but no, yeah. But I have only gotten Wheel of Fortune a few times. And man, I've had good weeks those times I have gotten Wheel of Fortune, for sure. And for now, though, keep your eye on the Word, keep your eye on the Pope, keep your eye on AI, keep your eye on Israel. And keep watching what fractures next. And man, that's where we got it, guys. So I hope that was informative. I'm pretty sure I went over all the charts here. I don't see any. Yeah, we hit all the charts. I mean, thanks for everyone who stuck around. This was definitely a labor of love. A lot of work went into it. Tomorrow I will be doing the news, probably about the same time. I'll make it after this. Just going to be. I saw a really good format of someone just scrolling through X, Twitter. So I'm just going to do that and live react and add astrology into the news story. Make sure I've been bookmarking some things that I can go over too. But yeah, I hope everyone has a fantastic evening. And thank you so much for tuning in, Night's Light Astrology. And if you want a reading or anything, check it out. My website is nightslight.co. My link tree is Night's Light. And then all of that is